Welcome to Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. I'm Rob Wilson.
And I am Tony the Quano.
So, Tony, let's switch gears a little bit from what we've been doing. We did a few sports movies recently, the last couple of weeks.
We did.
And now Halloween is just around the corner. So, what
We're
better...
going to do John Carpenter's Halloween?
No, we are not.
No?
No, we are not. We may do that maybe next Halloween. I don't know.
Wes Craven's Scream?
Nope.
No?
Neither of those.
Oh, okay.
Neither of those. No. We're going to do a movie that has been ranked the 9th scariest movie of all time.
Was that recent, was it Empire? Who did that one? Was it Empire?
It might have been.
I can't remember.
It might have been.
I remember seeing it, but yeah.
But yeah, and it is a movie that holds a special place in both of our hearts.
Absolutely.
And it's been a tradition of ours to watch it for years, every Halloween. That movie, of course, is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Yes. Not Stephen King's The Shining.
No.
Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Yes. Based off of the Stephen King novel, The Shining. But there are so many differences that, we'll get into it. But Stephen King did not like it.
Basically the skeleton.
Yes.
Of the thing, right? Stephen King famously did not like this movie, which I kind of get because it's his book.
Yeah.
But if you want that, you can see the miniseries, which was a fine miniseries.
Yeah. Which, funny thing, that miniseries, the way that Stephen King was able to get the film rights to make the miniseries from Kubrick is that he had to sign a document stating that he could never publicly diss Stanley Kubrick's version of The Shining again.
Which is, it's interesting. I remember watching the miniseries, and I don't, at that point, I knew who Stephen King was because I was like probably 8, and my uncle was watching it, and I saw a kid get eaten by a clown in the sewer.
That'll scar you for life.
And, plenty of other movies, right, or books, but that I couldn't have told you a whole lot about Stanley Kubrick when the miniseries came out.
Yeah,
and Kubrick, I don't know how petty of a guy he was, but I could understand. I think he definitely was someone that was like King, and his novels are very personal. Kubrick's movies are very personal to him.
Yes, definitely.
Whatever's happened to Steven Weber, by the way, thinking about the miniseries?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Wings was an interesting sitcom, wasn't it?
It was.
So Tony Shalhoub, too.
Yes.
We know Tony Shalhoub was Monk.
Yes. And Galaxy Quest, which we will cover on this podcast.
We will definitely cover Galaxy Quest. Back to Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. And it must have been, I guess, back in the 303, that Halloween, we decided we should watch The Shining at Halloween.
Yeah, that was...
I don't remember if we watched any other movies that
night. I don't think so. I mean, I didn't even see the whole movie that night because I was out at a Halloween bonfire.
That's right. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And when I got back, you and Steve were watching The Shining. And so I sat down and joined you. And I think the scene that I came in on was the red bathroom. I sat down and watched the rest of it.
Had you seen it before that?
No, that was the first time I'd seen it.
Because, I had the box set at that point of it was a Kubrick box set DVDs.
Yeah.
Didn't have all of them. It had 2001, Eyes Wide Shut, Full Metal Jacket, Clockwork Orange, and like a documentary on Kubrick. And I'd seen a bunch of his movies in college in the film class, and I don't think The Shining was part of, we did a series on directors. We watched several movies from that director. I don't think The Shining was one of them. I think I decided to watch it after that.
Okay.
And it kind of became a favorite. And then by the time once it became the tradition to watch it, like it's just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
it's a movie that you keep diving further and further into because there's so much to unravel within it.
Yeah.
And it's a movie that's kind of threadbare plot-wise when you really step back and think about it.
Yeah.
Like, guy gets an interview at the hotel. Guy gets job. Kid has a bad dream in the bathroom. Family goes to hotel. Tour hotel. Kind of mundane hotel. Shit starts to get weird. Kid gets raped by a ghost. Dad gets blamed.
Yep.
Right? and so forth.
Why do these movies
gets
always have to have kids getting raped by something? I mean, Poltergeist, you got a kid getting raped by a tree.
Right. So I mean that's another fall movie.
You got kids getting raped by a clown.
Yes. Like
I mean,
there's not enough talk about that tree just molesting that boy and Poltergeist.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about this plenty of times.
Yeah. And I'm sure we'll talk about it on the podcast if we do Poltergeist one of these days.
Yeah, maybe next fall we'll do Poltergeist because that's a movie I watch every fall as well.
That was Halloween of 06.
Yes,
Halloween of 2006 was the first time that I saw this movie, or at least the first time I saw like a good chunk of this movie.
Right. We talked about Twister, how they show multiple scenes of Shining and the drive-in scene, right? So,
I might have come in a little before the red bathroom scene.
okay.
But I think we watched it again not too long after.
Yeah, because you probably wanted to watch all of it.
Yeah.
Because
then
couldn't get enough of Scatman Crothers.
Yeah, then was it the following year or was it 2008 that we started our tradition of watching it every Halloween?
Yeah, that's a good question. 'Cause for a while there, we would actually call each other on the phone.
Yeah, I think it was I think it was
Queue it up together, right?
Yeah, I think it was 2008 because 2007 was when I first moved back to Kansas. And I was staying with my sister and brother-in-law at the time.
Oh, that's right. You were.
And I don't remember ever watching it at their house.
Okay.
It's when I got my apartment in Lawrence that we started it. Yeah, so it would have been 2008.
I think it's a great tradition because it's again, regarded as one of the greatest horror movies. But it's not always a movie people kind of think about as a Halloween movie that you watch, right? Like Halloween is one that you might think about. Yeah. Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, right? The more the slasher movies, right? Or maybe even though haunted houses are very synonymous with October, Halloween,
October and Halloween,
right?
yeah. And like you mentioned, we used to. There were a few times there when we were watching it. Actually, several times when we were watching it. We're halfway across the country from each other, but we'd call each other up and sync up the DVDs. So we were actually watching it together, and we'd stay on the phone the whole time, and we were watching it together.
Couldn't be 2 seconds behind or
ahead, right? No. We'd if one of us drifted past, we'd pause and wait for the other to catch up. So if anybody listening has never tried that, if you have a friend that lives away from you and you want to watch a movie together, try it. Sync up the viewings and talk to each other on the phone or FaceTime or something like that while you're watching. That way, it's like you're in the same room.
And you can just react to it however you react to it.
Yeah.
This gets tricky then, if someone knocks on the door and you have to get it, or that's when you gotta get resynced up, right?
Yeah.
Because it's hard to pause exactly at the same time, right? So,
yep. So
the pizza delivery man comes. Because Pizza Man was late.
Yeah, Pizza Man should never be late.
No,
but because so many pizza men are late nowadays, that's why they get rid of the whole 30 minutes or it's free.
Yeah, I mean that's been a while now.
Yeah, there used to actually be a thing where if the pizza was longer, it took longer than 30 minutes to get to you, it was free. That was nice. I've had that happen a couple of times in the past.
Yeah.
Got a free pizza because they were 35, 40 minutes.
I got a free pizza once because it was 90, over an hour late because the driver got pulled over because he was a bit under the influence of marijuana. He was, I guess, driving erratically, and then he was high, and so they
all right,
they had to send us a whole couple of new pizzas, and obviously we got comped and got a coupon for more pizza.
All right, nice.
But it's anyhow. So I mean, if we watch this, it's funny. It's a movie I probably only watch once a year.
Yeah, me too.
Right? But it's a favorite, obviously. And Kubrick's one of those directors, right? What's your favorite Kubrick movie, right? And I guess it's probably mine. 2001's a stunning movie.
Yeah,
to watch.
2001 is a stunning movie to watch.
I mean, and Doctor Strangelove's a brilliant movie also. But I know Barry Lyndon over the last 15, 20 years or so has really gained popularity, and obviously there's Full Metal Jacket, but I think I still got to go with The Shining.
Yeah, me too.
The movie is I don't know.
Yeah, The Shining is definitely
its own experience.
Yeah, The Shining is definitely the Kubrick movie that I've seen the most out of any of his movies. I've seen because the other ones, 2001, Doctor Strangelove, and Clockwork Orange, I've seen those once each.
Okay.
With The Shining, I lost count how many times I've seen it. Because that first 2006 when we were working at the hospital, it was on when I was working weekends, and there was nothing going on, and I was just sitting in the break room watching TV all day. Then it was constantly on during the Halloween season. Yeah.
Huh.
So I watched it a couple of times there. But
it's terrific, and it's very Kubrickian, even though it's based off a Stephen King book, right? But it's really, again, as you said, we got the shell of King's story. This Kubrick infuses with so many images and ideas.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just a visual thing to watch too, and we'll get into that because it's so odd.
Yeah.
Everything you see in this.
Yeah. And there have been it says a lot that there are just so many documentaries that have been made about this movie in particular.
Yeah. I mean, Room 238, 237,
yeah.
It really gets into it well. It's a really, if you've never seen that documentary and you have seen The Shining, like it's, you should watch Room 237.
Yeah, it's a very interesting documentary.
Fascinating. And what I like about, I love the parts of that where they just totally get, into people's first experiences of this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I'd almost forgotten my first experience of this movie because like they get clouded by everything that comes after it. And then everything else you read about it and everything else you're trying to expect from it again. And then you're trying to dissect it again. There's so much else that comes at you with it. So yeah, it's a fascinating movie to watch and discuss. I'm excited. I really want to know I'll be interested to see how we take this discussion.
Yes. Yeah, it will be. We're going to find out.
Again, because it's the plot it's not a very involved plot.
No, it's not. It's really not. I mean, it's one of those things. There's so much going on in this movie, but at the same time, there's not a whole lot going on in this movie.
No.
It's kind of weird in that way.
So yeah, but I guess with that, I guess we should warn you, right?
Yeah. Spoiler alert. We're going to be talking about this entire movie, beginning, middle, and end. So if you've not seen it and you don't want to be spoiled, then pause the podcast, watch the movie, come back and listen. If you have seen the movie or you just don't mind being spoiled, then keep on listening. You have been warned.
Which means if you're a fan of Scatman Crothers, don't get too attached to him.
Yes.
So
yes.
I guess he is in the movie. He does last until
the end of the movie. But
we should also point this out. Actually, fairly recently, Shelley Duvall, the lead actress, Wendy Torrance, in this sadly did pass away.
Yes, she did.
When was that? It was this year, right?
That was this year. Yeah, it was just a few months ago.
That would have been back in July. So it's past summer. So I guess we haven't even mentioned that Jack Nicholson's in this movie, right? Which I think everyone knows Jack Nicholson is in this movie.
Yes. And funny thing about Jack Nicholson being in this movie. So both Robert De Niro and Robin Williams were considered as to play Jack Torrance. But after seeing Taxi Driver, Kubrick thought that De Niro was not psychotic enough to play him. So he didn't cast De Niro. And after seeing Mork and Mindy, he thought Robin Williams was too psychotic to play Jack Torrance.
I love that part. But this is fast. I think this is a fascinating aspect of this. And before I get to the Robin Williams aspect, like this is actually one of the points of contention that Stephen King had with the casting of Jack Nicholson, right? Yeah. Because what's interesting, until, I guess Eyes Wide Shut, for the most part, Kubrick's movies did not really have like A-list stars, right? Yeah. And Jack Nicholson was highly popular, obviously. He's still one of the probably most beloved actors of all time. But Stephen King wanted more of an average kind of person that kind of becomes crazy. And he thought, people already know that Jack Nicholson's going to be crazy in this movie, right? Yeah. So he didn't like that aspect of it. Well, what's funny is like Robin Williams has always had that manic edge, though, right? But you don't really see him get the villain until 2002, where he actually plays it twice. Yeah, Insomnia and 1 Hour Photo, and particularly 1 Hour Photo.
Yeah, he was crazy in that movie.
Yeah, like his Insomnia villain is a little bit more subtle. But in 1 Hour Photo,
he's done creepy in 1 Hour Photo.
Yeah. So I know we brought up 1 Hour Photo before, and here we are again. But good one to check out if you haven't. Yeah, it's funny. Like, I think it was when it first came out, it was on a lot of people's minds, and people would talk about it, even a little bit after that. But it seems like it's been slightly forgotten lately. But it's too bad because it's a good movie.
It really is.
Back to The Shining, yeah.
And you know who else was briefly considered?
Who?
Harrison Ford was briefly considered to play Jack.
Which, I mean, I could see that.
I don't know what Kubrick's idea of how psychotic Harrison Ford was or wasn't. He was only considered for a brief time.
Interesting.
Yeah. We have done several Harrison Ford movies on this podcast so far, and we will do more.
We have. We've done, what, 5? We've done more. Wait, have we done more in the indie movies?
Yeah, we did. The indie movies, the Star Wars trilogy.
That's right, we did the Star Wars trilogy. So
I think that's the only 8 that we've done of his so far, but I know we have more. I know we have more on the in the list.
Air Force One or
Witness, Fugitive,
I know we talked about Fugitive before, so yeah, that would be a good one because I mean, who doesn't love Tommy Lee Jones and Harrison Ford and Joey Pants?
Yep,
all terrific.
Yep. And so before we get into the movie, so the trailer for this movie is kind of unique for the time, right? The elevator, like the blood spilling out of the elevator shaft.
Yes.
That entire sequence was in the trailer for this movie. And at that time, the MPAA had not implemented the whole green band, red band trailer distinction, right? And so they were considering it at the time, but they hadn't actually done it yet. And at that time, it was like blood was not allowed to be shown in a trailer.
Yeah.
Like blood in any form was not allowed to be shown in a trailer. Yet they still allowed Kubrick to use that sequence in the trailer because he convinced them that it wasn't blood. Stanley Kubrick convinced the MPAA that the blood pouring out of the elevator shaft was rusty water with red food coloring in it.
That's immediately what you're going to think about.
Yes.
Like, oh, that's just rusty water,
with some red food coloring. But they believed him and they let him put it in there. I mean, I only mention that now because we get our first little glimpse of that sequence like pretty early on in the movie.
I mean, it's a common sequence, and like I think it's probably a nice shot to kind of throw into the trailer without kind of getting again, because there's not a lot of action that's actually in this movie.
Yeah.
And the significant stuff that happens, like, we probably don't really want to show in the trailer because it would be too spoilery, or it would involve a naked old lady.
Yeah.
And that's definitely against the MPAA.
Yes, that's definitely against the MPAA.
Can't get around that one.
No.
Those aren't breasts. They're... That's a pineapple. That's not Bush. That's Julianne Moore in Shortcuts.
It's like the Hedge Maze and The Shining, but without Scatman Crothers.
By the way, we never see Scatman Crothers in that Hedge Maze.
No, we don't. Maze. We don't ever see him.
Was
in
he
Hedge
just
Maze.
in Julianne Moore's Hedge Maze?
Maybe.
I mean, based off his apartment,
I don't know.
in Florida,
he very well could
possible.
Be. But Julianne Moore might be a little bit like, judging by his apartment in Florida, Julianne Moore might be a little bit
pale.
too Caucasian for him. Judging by the pictures he's got hanging up on the walls.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's why he's not interested in room 237.
Yeah, which in the book was room 217.
Yes,
because that was the room that Stephen King stayed in when he wrote, or at least when he was writing portions of The Shining.
Okay. Did he write it from the Stanley Hotel?
I think he at least, I don't know if he was writing it from there, if he got the idea for it from there.
So,
from the Stanley Hotel. But
when we say the Stanley Hotel is a hotel in Colorado that he basically based that he used to come as inspiration for the book. And
yes.
It's supposedly haunted. It's in the Rockies, just like the Overlook is supposed to be in this movie, which the Overlook's the name of the hotel in the movie and the book. So
yeah,
but the hotel they actually use the exterior hotel they use in the movie is actually in Oregon.
Yes,
not in Colorado.
And the interior of the hotel was based off of several different hotels, like depending on the room or the area of the hotel is based off of several different hotels around the country.
I mean, we'll get into that because everything's changing in that hotel, and is it's on purpose? Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, so in the book, it was room 217. But since the Stanley Hotel had a room 217, they didn't want that room to be in the movie because they didn't want people to, be afraid to stay in that room.
It was a ghost that would turn from a young chick to an old chick.
Yeah.
And strangle you.
The hotel didn't have a room 237, so that's why they made it room 237 for the movie.
I guess they had 227.
Maybe.
No. Yeah. They kept the 7, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't blame them.
I don't either. But they could also, there are so many, ghost hunters and stuff like that out there that they could just charge extra for the room and people would pay it.
People would pay it.
To stay in the Shining room.
The Shining room, yes. And then they could rig up some animatronics. Anyway, so I love how the movie starts, though. So, like, the music.
Yes.
The
music.
It's ominous to begin with. And it's funny, like it's basically what the first 4 or 5 minutes is a tracking shot of a VW bug driving in the mountains.
Interesting thing about this tracking shot. So Kubrick, as we know, did way too many takes than anybody ever needs to do for a movie.
This dude was not just. I mean, he did many takes, and he was meticulous.
He was meticulous. Yes.
I wouldn't necessarily say perfectionist. There's other people that are kind of perfectionists, that are directors that may not take many takes, right? They find kind of what they want, or they just kind of allow things to film, and then they find what they want. No, he just did take after take after take.
A Kubrick movie,
everything was.
A Kubrick movie would regularly take years to make, to film. Not even like post-production stuff, but like the actual
we
production.
We talked about Shelley Duvall. Like it's very well known that like he would like berate.
And he
Shelley Duvall.
Yeah, and he would tell the other cast and crew not to comfort her because he wanted her in that space. He wanted her in that mindset.
She needed to be like the mindset of like someone that's being psychologically abused by her husband. So he was a psychologically abusive director.
Yeah, and both she and Jack Nicholson have gone on record saying that this was the hardest shoot they've ever done because of dealing with Kubrick.
Strangely enough, a recent director that some people say can be very hard to work with sometimes, that's been compared, and like they have different styles, but they're also both very ambitious, is Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's very meticulous also. But yeah, but Jack Nicholson was also a good friend of Kubrick's though. So
yes.
But yeah, so the tracking shot, there was so much extra footage that they did for this tracking shot that when Ridley Scott was making Blade Runner, when the studio made him tack on a happy ending to it, he went to Kubrick and he asked for some of the footage from this tracking shot. And Kubrick, because he loved Ridley Scott's work so much and everything, he gave it to him. He gave him any footage that was not used in the actual movie. He could use it for that ending tracking shot of Blade Runner. So yeah, next time you watch Blade Runner, if you're watching the theatrical cut, I think it was the final theatrical cut. Yeah, in '82.
I shouldn't say tracking shot. Tracking shot's, I guess, different. It's the helicopter.
Yeah, the helicopter shot
tracks the car, but it's
the helicopter shot tracking the car through the winding roads in the mountains.
I love how it changes, like different scenery in this, and sometimes it's like it's just going through different ranges in some ways.
Yeah.
Like again, some of it just doesn't make sense. Like where it is. Like some of it looks like stuff, you can tell some of it's definitely the fall, and some seem higher up in the mountains, some seem further. You don't know where. And interesting enough, depending on how you watch The Shining, if you had the original DVDs of it, the aspect ratio of this, you can see the shadow of the helicopter in some of the scenes. And this is a point of contention in a lot of different things in terms of, like, was this just a simple mistake? Did Kubrick actually leave this in? To say something? It's like, is he breaking the fourth wall? About, there's a lot of discussion about why that's there. Because again, he's super meticulous.
Yes.
And like you're saying, like you just said, like there is so much footage that was shot.
Yeah.
Just for a car to drive to the hotel so they could have the opening credits.
For a 1.5-minute sequence in the movie?
Yeah. All we know is that there's a VW bug and it's driving in the mountains. You don't know who's in that bug right now. You just hear the kind of scary music.
Yep. For all you know, it could be Bumblebee.
Could be Bumblebee.
Maybe he's going to get to the end of the road and then turn into
Michael Bay movie.
Yeah. And he's going to transform into an alien robot. But we don't know.
But no, it ends at a hotel there, and we had a wide shot of the hotel, and even the hotel just kind of looks like
it's a cool looking hotel though.
And I guess you kind of see the maze a little bit, which becomes kind of it's fun. It's not really a massive set piece. I mean, they bring it up multiple times, kind of now and then, at the tour, in the middle of the movie, and then at the end of the movie, right?
Which in the book it wasn't a hedge maze. It was a hedge animal.
Garden. Which is, if you watch the TV miniseries, they bring back the different animals, and there's a scene where they're stalking Jack.
Yeah, but Kubrick decided to go with the hedge maze because the special effects weren't good enough at the time to make a believable hedge animal come to life.
Which makes sense. And again, he's a perfectionist. He's not gonna, he's not gonna be one that's gonna have unbelievable like CGI like that. Been made 5 or 6 years later, maybe. I mean, you look at how they did, some of the CGI in Terminator. Would that have been seen enough for Kubrick? I don't know.
Might have been. I don't know.
So, but it gets there, and then they just. I love how there's different like title cards, right? And it just says the interview.
Yeah.
you know.
So
and right now, he just, Jack Nicholson looks kind of normal.
Yeah, he plays Jack Torrance. And so, yeah, he goes in and he's taken into Mr. Ullman's office, or at least he's directed to Mr. Ullman's office, the manager of the hotel.
And this is already where, like, some of it kind of gets, like, the makeup of it looks kind of interesting because, like, you have kind of the big front desk, right? Mm-hmm. It's a massive lobby.
Yeah.
Right, with a bunch of sofas and other furniture. You just go that far down the hallway.
It's a big open space.
Go around to his left. It's like, out to the right, it's a big open space, and they got big windows. And he kind of goes in like there's a little like secretary's desk area, which must be Mr. Ullman's personal secretary, right?
Yeah.
And then his office is nestled in there, and he's got a window in his office. But then when you look at how he was walking, like, then it feels like there should be something behind that.
Exactly.
Because there's a bunch of other space.
There shouldn't be an outside on the other side of that window. Yeah, because that's like right in the middle of the lobby. So it should be overlooking, that lobby area. But no, outside the window is outside.
Like the front desk and like his kind of office area. And on the other side is just massive open lounge area for the lobby, right? But then it continues to go further down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's not even like they kind of show past the office area a little bit, and there's no courtyard there.
No, there's not. Like, if there was a courtyard there with that type of hotel, you would think they'd have doors opening out to it, right?
Yeah,
and windows, right? Because it's a nice hotel, right? It's a massive kind of, it's probably not the 5-star hotel it was when it opened, but it's still a nice hotel. I mean,
there was a huge tragedy there. That stuff like that usually makes a hotel lose a star or two.
Yeah, the Michelin guys, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Stacked dead children.
Yeah, I don't know.
But anyway, he goes in and starts having just really a very casual conversation. It's almost like not even an interview. It's like, you know what?
It's like you already have the job. Else. It's like you already have the job, so let's just tell you what it's about.
You seem normal.
Yeah. But even though you seem normal, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to tell you what happened in the past. The person you talked to on the phone didn't tell you what happened, did they?
Which, granted, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense that.
By the way,
and Jack even mentions that he's like, and after he tells him the story, he's like, I understand why they didn't tell me, why they let you tell me.
By the way, Ullman is portrayed by
Barry Nelson.
What's his name again? Barry Nelson. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So, which it's funny, he had a small, very uncredited role in Poltergeist, which I didn't realize until recently. So
Ullman starts telling him what happened about the tragedy that happened at the hotel. What was it in the
about one of the
winter
other
of 70? Is that what it was?
70
winter of 1970.
Something that's been within the last 10 years of the events. And he's particularly talking about something that's happened with someone that previously had this role, right?
Yeah.
One of the things they talk about is that where they're located in the mountains, like they're a seasonal hotel. Yeah. Right, the roads that go to it get shut down in the winter.
Yeah, because the snow just gets so bad. Blizzards come down and they just cover the roads, and it's
way too expensive. To be able to continually keep it clear.
Yeah, so there's like a 5-month period where they just shut down.
But obviously, you need someone there at the hotel to keep up with the general maintenance of the place.
Keep up with the maintenance, keep the boilers going, warm up certain areas of the hotel at different times, and just basically, general upkeep of the property.
So they're a caretaker.
Yeah.
Which makes it makes perfect sense. And, I guess they have a different caretaker every winter. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I get after the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
Axe murdered his family.
Yeah.
They needed another one after that.
Yeah. So he starts telling him about Grady, the previous caretaker from roughly 10 years before, 8 to 10 years before. And Grady, the isolation, or at least what he says is it's the isolation that got to him.
Cabin fever.
Sort of cabin fever type of thing. But he had 2 daughters, a wife and 2 daughters. And now, before I go on with the story, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute. Because we need to discuss one of my biggest movie pet peeves is when people call Grady's daughters twins.
Oh, yeah, no, not twins.
They're not twins. He specifically says they were 8 and 10 years old. 8 and 10. That is not twins.
They wear the same dress. But it's obviously even the actresses are not twins.
Actually, the actresses were twins. Yes.
Yeah, okay,
That's the thing.
Different height.
That's the thing. The actresses were twins. They were different heights, but they were twins. The actresses were. The characters are not. The characters are 2 years apart.
Oh, yeah, I do see it here. Yeah. Lisa and Louise are the actresses.
Yeah. And they were twins, which is where the whole twins in The Shining thing came from. Because the actresses are twins, but the characters are not twins. The characters are 8
like
and 10 years old. And even if you look at them, like you said, one is taller than the other. So they're clearly, even look at them as the characters, they're clearly not twins. Sure, they look alike, but they're dressed the same. But they're different
guess
heights.
what? They're also dead. They're ghosts. They can appear however the fuck they want.
That too.
I mean, there's a ghost in here that portrays herself in 2 different forms.
Yeah. So everybody out there, quit saying they're twins. Quit saying the characters are twins. If you're talking about the actresses, sure. Say they're twins all you want. Because they're twins. But the characters are not twins. So quit calling them twins. Please. Quit calling them twins. Okay, I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
You're fine. It's allowed. I always think it's funny though when you I love Nicholson's like face when it's going on. It's like, oh, okay. He's intrigued.
Yeah.
But not in like a true crime intriguing type of way. He's like, oh, I've thought about axe murdering my family before. Take a look.
But yeah, so basically, according to Ullman, the isolation was getting to Grady, and he took an axe to his wife and daughters and then stacked them in one of the rooms.
Which is interesting.
And then
scene later where
and then shot himself with a shotgun.
Just kind of guess.
So yeah, killed his wife and daughters and then shot himself. But
Nicholson just seems interested. Like that sounds like a nice way of dispatching my family.
Yeah, yeah. He has it's sort of glimmer in his eye.
Yeah, no,
he's telling him the story.
Like, you know what? Yeah, maybe he's not such a good guy. I think it's funny because Ullman's like our guy, because one of the other managers there or whatever comes in and Ullman's talking to him. He's like, our people in Denver highly recommended him. Mm-hmm. And for once, I agree. Yeah. Which I get if the people in Denver also recommended Grady. Yeah. Which then here's another difference from the book here is in the book, Ullman didn't want to hire Jack. You're right. He did not want him in the position, but the other guy that came in convinced him to do it. I guess I should clarify, like, I think Ullman does say that he was not the manager of the hotel when the tragedy happened. Yeah. So he said it was the manager before. Yeah. So anyway, but as he notes, like it's something that has given people pause before, which, I would understand. Yeah. And Jack is like, hey, I'm completely fine with that. My wife is a horror movie aficionado. Well, he says a self-proclaimed ghost story. Yeah, not horror movie. Ghost story and horror. Yeah, and horror movie. Ghost story and horror movie expert or addict. Yeah, it's interesting. There's a horror movie addict. Horror movies at that time were just starting to kind of get into like a new genre of them, right? Mm-hmm. Halloween was only a few years old. Friday the 13th released like the same year. And that didn't take off at first. The first Friday the 13th is not a very good movie. In fact, I'm not a big fan of any of the Friday the 13th movies. In terms of like the big 3 slasher killers, Freddy, Jason, and Michael Myers, Jason's my least favorite. Yeah, I mean, his movies aren't as fun as the Freddy movies. Plus his mother, the first one is not even Jason, First one is his mother. Spoiler alert. Drew Barrymore found that out the wrong way. Well, Drew Barrymore was in Scream, not Friday the 13th. Yes. Well, that's also why she remember she gets it wrong. Yes. Actually, that's right. That's right. Yes, her boyfriend found out the hard way because she got it wrong in Scream. I'm sorry. That's the wrong answer. Mm-hmm. I like Scream. Anyhow. Yeah. But meanwhile, so they kind of conclude the interview and then we go to Boulder. Yes, Boulder, right? Where they live. Right. And there's a kind of a 2-3 story apartment complex just outside the mountains, right? And you have now his family. Danny is his son. He's 5 or 6 years old, and his wife Wendy, as we said, played by Shelley Duvall. Interesting enough, just like Jack is played by an actor whose name is Jack, Danny is played by an actor whose name is Danny. Danny Lloyd. Danny Lloyd. Interesting thing about Danny Lloyd real quick. Another little nugget of knowledge for you. So Danny Lloyd. So Stanley Kubrick was, some would say abusive to the entire cast of this movie, especially Shelley Duvall, just because he wanted that perfect shot, right? He needed them in the mindset. Danny was the exception. He was extremely protective of Danny Lloyd. This makes sense. He would not allow anybody to tell Danny Lloyd that they were making a horror movie.
He told Danny that, like, Danny was under the impression that they were just making a drama. And so any scary elements, Danny was kept out of that. So, like, even the scene later, which we'll get to when, after some stuff happens in the Colorado room, and
that's why he
Wendy, the mother, picks him up. Yeah, it's a doll
door
that she's carrying out of the room. A life-size doll.
That's why he'd innocently approach an open door.
Yeah.
Like, mommy might be in there.
Like, Danny Lloyd didn't actually see, like, he saw a highly edited version of the movie within a few years of this one coming out that didn't have any of the scary stuff in it, but then he didn't actually see the full movie until he was 17 years old. So, yeah. So, yeah.
By the way,
Stanley Kubrick may have been, a terror to most of the actors in this movie, but for Danny Lloyd, he was highly, highly protective.
He was probably about 7 when they started filming this movie. He was born in October of 72.
Yeah.
Which means it was pretty much 1990. When.
Yeah.
So the Berlin Wall had fallen by that point.
Yeah.
Major world events happened.
Yeah. So we get Danny Torrance, played by Danny Lloyd.
They're in it's funny. They're like, and probably it's like a 2-bedroom apartment. And it's kind of a typical thing where you might see like a preschool age kid with his mom.
Yeah, they're sitting at the table, at the dinner table.
Lunchtime.
He's eating a sandwich, and they're talking.
And they're talking about Dad's interview. Perfectly reasonable thing to be talking about, right? And then they basically say, oh, yeah, they talk about the job, and we find out Danny has what appears to be an imaginary friend, which he just uses his finger.
Yes, he uses his finger when it's his imaginary friend Tony.
It's like his right index finger or his left index finger, I guess. Yeah. Anyway,
we find out shortly after this that Tony is the little boy that lives in his mouth.
Yes,
that's how he describes it.
And how his mom, or Wendy, kind of talks. Doesn't really speak to Tony himself, right? She just asks Danny about Tony. What does Tony think about this? Right? She just kind of plays along with it, and the reasonable way for her to be able to do it, right?
I mean, as a parent would with a kid with an imaginary friend, right?
Yeah. And find Tony doesn't really want to go to the Overlook. But Tony also knows that Dad already got the job, and he's going to call soon about it. And he changes his voice too. Like he kind of like a squeakier voice. Like he's 5. He's already going to have a higher pitched voice, right? But it's even like squeakier and higher.
Yeah, I mean, he actually kind of goes a little bit lower for the Tony voice, a little lower and gravelly.
Yeah, that's
a little bit
true.
for Tony's voice.
Yeah, and but Wendy's like, oh, we're going to have a really good time, right? And I thought it's funny. Like it's again, you talk about how detailed and meticulous Kubrick is. Like it's such a different setting than what we just saw with the hotel, right? Yeah. It's like, again, it's a family of 3 living in a 2-bedroom apartment. And it's, not that it's like super messy, but it's not like it's super neat. It just seems like what an apartment might be with a young kid. And you see, again, it's a small apartment. We can see that the family probably does need a little bit of money, right? It's not like they're like in poverty.
No, but
it's not like they're of means either.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, it's not like it's a nice apartment or anything. It's,
right. No, the guy's taking the job for a reason. Right? Like, again, I would imagine that if you're caretaking a hotel property by yourself for 5 months, you get room and board.
Yes.
Right? So, and
then you also get food because they have the entire kitchen at their disposal.
But I would imagine like the pay is probably pretty decent because they want to make sure that they have someone that's responsible to keep up their nice hotel.
Yeah. I mean, then you'd also need, if I would imagine they would have like a shed or something like that with supplies and, building materials and stuff like that in case he needs to, replace some 2x4s somewhere or something like that. But at the same time, if he would need to get out somewhere to buy things like that, I would imagine there would be some sort of like stipend,
Because they say they have a snowcat at the disposal, so like they really need to get out. Like it's not like they're totally snowed in. They can get to like the ranger station or wherever else might be within the town where they are, closest town to get something that might be needed, right? Like I don't know, a doctor. Or other supplies, like you were saying. And like I'm sure anything else that might be needed for some basic repairs wouldn't be on them. Right. No. And one of the things we learned also during the interview is that Jack is formerly a school teacher, but he wants to be a writer.
Yes.
And he's excited about having the time to be able to focus and write a book.
Yes.
Which is important because we see more time in writing than attending the hotel. I'll get to that.
Yes.
I'll get to that.
Yes.
Because it's very interesting. Yeah. So I guess he doesn't tell Wendy yet that Dad got the job because they're talking. Because she says we're all going to have a real good time.
Danny doesn't tell her.
Right, exactly. Because she says, "Oh, we're going to have a real good time together." Mm-hmm. And then we see him
brushing his teeth.
Probably
he's in the bathroom brushing his
after
teeth
lunch,
and he's talking to Tony.
He's just talking to Tony, and it's kind of like in the mirror, right?
And Tony tells him that he already
got the job, and he's going to call Wendy real soon.
Yeah, and then we see Wendy answering the phone.
Get the call from Wendy, and she answers the phone, and he just says it's going to be kind of late. I'm wrapping things up here, but I think I got the job. Yeah. So, and again, it's probably a 2-3 hour drive. Right? Yeah.
I mean, he said it made it. Yeah, he said he made it in 3.5 hours when he met with Ullman.
He did say that,
and Ullman's like, "Oh, you made good time." So
but you can imagine, if he's going to have another little tour and they're going to have to do paperwork, he's probably going to get back at 9 o'clock at night, right?
Mm-hmm. So
that's what he says. And
so then Danny, it cuts back to Danny, and he's talking to Tony again, and he's like, "Why don't you want to go to the hotel?"
I don't want to go. That's right. Yeah.
Why don't you want to go?
Interrogating.
And Tony's like, "I don't want to say. I don't want to tell you."
Come on.
And he's like, "Come on." And so he starts seeing these visions of the hotel. And this is where, we see a glimpse of that elevator scene with the blood pouring out of the elevator shaft.
And of course, obviously, Danny Lloyd is not seeing this.
And we see the sisters
having this conversation, what he thinks is a conversation with him and the imaginary friend.
Yeah.
About why he doesn't want to go to the hotel. That could be any drama.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, that's where my dog died. Mm-hmm. I don't want to go back there.
Yeah. But so Danny Torrance is being shown these visions, and he sees the blood pouring out of the elevator shaft. He sees the girls.
Close up of the two girls. And they have these, it's like a periwinkle light blue dress. That's what they wear. And they have a smile. How the hell?
Creepy
these girls,
they're
what
creepy.
The hell?
They're creepy.
I don't know. I don't know. Did they ever do anything else? I had no idea.
I don't know. But the next thing we see after he sees this vision, his eyes get wide and his mouth drops open. And then the next thing we see, he's laying down in a bed with a doctor going over him because he had fainted.
It's this is back when apparently, was not very uncommon for doctors to make house calls. Mm-hmm. And, she's a woman. She's probably 60, right? And she's asking Danny all these types of questions. And Danny's just there in his bed. Interesting enough, by the way, I love his bedroom. It's very much a kid's bedroom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his pillow is a big teddy bear.
Snoopy all over the place. There's a teddy bear pillow, and it's got Snoopy all over the place. Mm-hmm. I want to bring this up about Snoopy. So there is a Snoopy toy in Portuguese, right, that Carol Ann walks around, right? It's one of those little rope toys. And I realized there's another horror movie that's got a Peanuts character. On the nightstand in Reagan's room in The Exorcist, there's a Charlie Brown figurine. And
what is it about the Peanuts and horror movies?
Yeah.
And also, one of the other things that Ullman had mentioned in the interview was that the hotel was built on an Indian burial ground.
Yes, and that's going to be really important because there's a lot of that imagery. Yeah. And this is definitely does tie in very much within the novel, being on that burial ground. So,
and I only mentioned that because you mentioned Poltergeist, and that was also the house was built on an Indian burial ground in Poltergeist. So that could be the Snoopy connection there.
Yeah.
But
if you move the headstones, they're going to the bodies.
Yeah.
Love Craig T. Nelson. Craig T. Nelson's great in that movie.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. But anyway,
anyway, the doctor's talking to Danny, and then she's like, he was saying that he was in the bathroom talking to Tony, and Tony's the imaginary friend. And next thing he knows, his mom was saying, "Wake up, Danny, wake up!" And then she asked, does Danny ever tell you anything?
Does Tony ever tell you to do things?
He's like,
I don't want to talk about Tony anymore.
It's like, okay. And then he has to stay in bed the rest of the day.
Yep.
Poor kid.
Now, here's what I want to know.
This is 1980.
Here's what I've never understood.
At that point, go ahead.
So the doctor, is sitting there talking to Danny because he fainted. He's laying in the bed on top of the covers in his underwear. Why is he in his underwear?
I don't know. I don't get this either. Doesn't he have PJ pants?
Yeah. He's wearing a pajama shirt, but he's just in the PJ shirt and his underwear. There's no pajama pants.
He was wearing pants when he fainted.
Yeah.
Wasn't a physical where,
No.
Just checking to make sure his testes descended.
Yeah. He's a little young for that. But yeah, I have always wondered that. Why is he laying there in his underwear?
It's like,
I get a lot of times kids will sleep in their underwear. I
get that, yes.
But he's not sleeping. It's a doctor visit, and if she's checking him out because he fainted, then why would his pants be off? I could see his shirt being off because she might need to check his heart and stuff like that. Get her stethoscope out and check the heart and lungs and stuff.
Especially after passing out like that, that there. But you don't need the pants off.
No,
that ass.
Unless she was taking his temperature through his butt or something. But
But again, like I don't think it need that specific of a temperature.
no.
Like I think that the simple in the mouth
in the
one
mouth
would suffice. It's not like he's got a high like a like he's vomiting or has pneumonia or anything like that, where you may want the most accurate temperature.
Yeah.
And then he's got to stay in bed in his underpants.
Yep.
With no Atari, no Game Boy.
Nope.
No. He's just got to lie in bed with his thoughts.
Yep. So then Wendy's like, well, let's go out to the living room and talk. So she takes
she smokes. I love it.
She lights up a cigarette, and that ash on that cigarette just keeps getting longer and longer.
This movie, you could tell, is definitely like at the cusp. We're starting to switch from the 70s to the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have all the dark paneling yet of the 80s, but it's not all the disco vibe of the 70s. No, this is right in there, late 70s, early 80s vibe. The entire apartment.
I mean, the movie came out in 1980. It was filmed in the late 70s. So, yeah.
For the dress, all of it. And, like, again, let's call it 1979. This is when they're filming it, right? Yeah.
Well, I think it was actually earlier than that, because there were some sequences in the movie that took a year, like just for that scene to be filmed.
That's true.
So, I mean, I'm sure they probably started filming in like 77, 78, somewhere in there.
Everybody were like, it's funny. It's like if you watch it on like Netflix now or whatever, there's like one of the warnings, there's smoking.
Yeah.
Right? Because Wendy just lights up.
And you're not, like, the whole time when she's smoking, you're not worried about like lung cancer or anything like that. You're worried about this ash on the end of the cigarette. Just watching this ash get longer and longer and waiting for it to fall into like their coffee or something.
Even the doctor, who doesn't smoke, she refuses the cigarette. She's just staring at that ash. She's like, what's going to happen with it? Anyway, she tries to assure Wendy nothing is wrong with Danny, and that it's like it probably won't happen again. If it does, they can run tests. It's just kids can scare you to death with some of these things. Mm-hmm. And then they had kind of do small chat about like how long they've been in Boulder, and they said they came out from Maine, and that Jack used to be a school teacher, and that she asked like, well, when did Danny show up? Did they come like when you came out here to Colorado when you moved? And this is again, okay. So I always get shaky on the timeline of when they moved, when Danny was in nursery school, when Jack was a teacher, right? And when his injury happens, right?
Because, they mention the injury when the doctor is in the room with Danny, but you don't actually get an explanation of the injury until after Wendy and the doctor are talking in the living room.
Yes. And, she says like, oh, yeah, well, Danny scattered some of Jack's school papers all over the floor, and Jack had come back from a night of drinking. Mm-hmm. He got angry. Dislocated Danny's shoulder.
Yeah, he grabbed Danny by the arm and pulled a little too hard and dislocated his shoulder.
I always love when he's like, it's just one of those things.
It's just one of those things that you do 100 times. He's grabbing the kid's arm, pulling him away from something. He just used a little too much strength and injured his arm.
Meanwhile, the doctor's looking, it's like, she has dangerous levels of ash. And an abusive husband.
Yeah.
Like, who knows? Maybe she does call Child Protective Services, but by that time they're driving back.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
to the Overlook.
Maybe.
But she's just like,
But I mean, this is also
one good
this
thing
was also
happened.
back when it was completely legal to beat your kids. Well, not so much beat your kids, but discipline them. Physically discipline them.
Yeah. I mean, it was okay to have a paddle and maybe have the ass bleed a bit.
Mm-hmm. Or, allow the ash from your cigarette to fall onto their, like, sandwich or something.
Or, ride in the car with them in the front seat, when they used to have the middle seat in the front.
Yep.
With the windows rolled up.
Yep. Or in the bed of the pickup truck.
And you also smoke with the windows rolled up.
Yep.
So it's just a cloud of smoke.
Yeah, so you hotbox in the car with the kid. That was perfectly legal back then.
Yes. Or, the station wagons that had seats in the way back and didn't have seat belts. And they just sat you sat in there.
Yeah. I used to love that seat.
Anyhow, that stuff was awesome. Sorry. Yeah, that was good stuff.
Yep.
Anyway.
Riding in the car is not nearly as cool as it used to be.
I like having cup holders in the middle of the front seat now. So like I like that as an adult.
Yeah, me too.
But as a kid, I did like sitting in that seat
I like that middle seat up there as a kid, yeah.
You know, maybe you don't wear your seatbelt and go flying through the windshield if you read somebody. But, you know.
But it was a perfectly fine place to sit.
Back to Jack and Wendy and the doctor. Jack assured Wendy that he would never touch another drop of alcohol again.
And he hasn't.
And it's been 6 months.
Yes, it's been 6 months. Yeah, 6 months since that happened. And he hasn't touched a drop of alcohol since.
We cut now, and now they're all in the bug. We don't get a whole lot of the exterior, though. You know, you just get a shot from inside of it. And again, Danny's not wearing a seatbelt.
No, he's sort of standing up, leaning forward. He's in the back seat, or he's behind the front seats, but he's not really sitting down.
No, he's just kind of got his arms kind of across, kind of
on the back of the seats in the front.
Both his mom's seat and his dad's seat, right? So
yeah, and they're talking about the trip and you know what's going on,
and you know Wendy's such like, did the Donner Party get lost back here?
Yeah, was this around the place where the Donner Party, got snowbound?
I like how she just casually brings up the Donner Party in front of her 5-year-old son, and then Jack's like, I think that was further west in the Sierras.
Yeah. And then Danny's like, what's the Donner Party? And Jack decides to explain to his 7-year-old son, 5 or 7-year-old son.
7, 5, 6, yes.
Yeah.
You know, like,
about what happened with the Donner Party.
And they were in the covered wagon times.
They were a group of settlers back in covered wagon times that got snowbound in the mountains, and they had to resort to cannibalism to stay alive. And Danny's like, you mean they ate each other up?
Yes, they had to.
They had to. And Wendy's like, Jack, and Danny's like, it's okay, Mom. I know all about cannibalism. I saw it on TV.
He saw it on the television.
I love Jack's response there. He's like, see, Wendy, it's okay. He saw it on the television. He's just got that smile on his face.
It's such a dad response.
It's okay. He saw it on the television.
I showed it to him, but he saw it. I mean, there was a truth to that, though. I think if you think about it at that point, like, oh yeah, there's probably a bunch of stuff they started seeing things about on the television. Even back, I mean, granted, back then it was still only a few channels, right? I'm sure, like in the late 70s, like, you know, you had ABC, NBC, CBS, and maybe like a local broadcasting station or two, right? But again, those local broadcasting stations might have stuff about cannibalism.
Yep, they might.
And they get there, and they finally get to the hotel, and I love how Jack's just kind of sitting there, and like the oddest thing, you see this huge stack of luggage.
Yes, there's a huge stack of luggage.
Which, granted, again, they're going to be there for almost 6 months.
Yeah, they're going to be there for 5 months, so it makes sense they're going to have a lot of luggage.
But they drove a motherfucking Beetle.
Yeah. And in the exterior of the shots of the car, did we see the luggage?
There was nothing on the exterior.
Because all of that would not be able to fit in that car.
Listen, I know how to, I can pack a fucking car.
Yeah, so can I.
Like, I will use use the spare tire well to put soft stuff in.
Yeah.
Right? You know, that I know it's flat.
I mean, you and I are both.
I'll use space.
You and I are both Tetris masters when it comes to packing cars.
I have a Volkswagen station wagon, and it's bigger than a Volkswagen Beetle. And what they have there, I don't think I can get all that in there.
They have suitcases, they have trunks, they
a luggage
have
rack on top.
Yeah, like those luggage carts that hotels have. They filled one of those things, at least one of those.
They packed a kid's tricycle.
Yes,
he has a tricycle.
Yes,
unless they got that tricycle somewhere in town after they got there, maybe they did. I don't know.
Or maybe it was left there from Grady and his daughters. Maybe that's why Danny runs into him, because they wanted their tricycle back.
But tricycles take space.
Yes,
they took a
and
tricycle.
It wasn't a small one either.
No, it was a big wheel tricycle.
Yes,
I had an Alf tricycle. It was like that.
Nice. Yeah, because it wasn't quite a big wheel. It was kind of a precursor to a big wheel, so it was kind of a tricycle big wheel hybrid.
Anyway, So he gets there and he sees Mr. Ullman. And he wants to start the tour. It's like, well, I gotta grab my family. You know, they found the snack bar or something like that. And
But before that, though, Jack is sitting there in a big, comfy-looking chair in the lobby, waiting for Ullman to come out, and he's just finishing up some food, and he's reading a Playgirl magazine.
Yeah, where did that come from?
Exactly.
Did the ghost leave it there for him to see?
Maybe, because Playgirl is not typically a magazine that would be sitting at a nice hotel like that, just on the coffee table.
Did Wendy just somehow miss that he has that magazine?
And the funny thing is, that particular issue of Playgirl,
okay, I don't know where this is going,
had an article in it about Stanley Kubrick and 2001: A Space Odyssey.
That's funny. By the way, there's think about this. There actually is, again, like this is Kubrick and how he films certain things in terms of transition shots from scene to scene, right? And kind of the fade, how it comes into the lobby. Mm-hmm. Transitions nicely actually into like the valet there that's like pushing the luggage cart of some of their stuff. Yeah,
and so far, this area where he's sitting reading the Playgirl is the only area of the hotel we've seen. It was the same area he was in before when he met with Ullman.
And there's so much I want to think about this because when you look into how they get in and out of the hotel, it seems like there's two places where they kind of come in and out. Like there seems like there's the main entrance and there's also kind of like a secondary entrance that we see. But some of the other rooms we're going to be introduced to soon. There's like the gold room seems like it's attached to this, but other times how it's connected, I'm not certain. And again, like most of what you kind of see from it is basically kind of from the far end of it looking down all the way, where you have like the desk on your left and you got like I guess the entrance on your right, and you're looking all the way down this area. I'm not seeing it really from another perspective you haven't seen the other perspective yet, like if you're the other end of it, right? Looking down to kind of where Jack might be like sitting reading his magazine.
Yeah.
He was just really interested in 2001.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that had to have been the article he was reading.
I mean, why else do you get those magazines but to read the articles?
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, Ullman comes out and meets him and they go to, they tell him that, they'll take him on a tour. And he's like, well, I should probably go collect my family first. And so, Ullman tells someone to take their luggage up to their apartment. Yeah. Because there's a little apartment that's set up for the caretaker.
Yeah, like, it's interesting. Like, you think about this. Like, we'll get to it later because they get down there later.
Like, it's separate from the main hotel rooms.
Like an employee wing.
Yeah.
In some ways, which is interesting because, like, it's if they were open all year round, if they were, like, more like a winter ski resort, I could see them having, like, in a little employee wing there where they have, like, seasonal employees might kind of live.
Yeah.
Right?
But it's not a ski resort.
He's the one seasonal employee, which so I get they might have a little apartment for that. And we'll get in the apartment soon.
But yeah, so then we get Danny.
He's in the little games room.
Yeah, they have a game room. It's got an arcade game. Yeah, is he playing darts? Yeah, that's right. He's playing darts.
But they have like a game room. I think they have like a. It's funny. We only see this the one time in the movie. Mm-hmm. It's really not a big game room, but it's not small. Is there a pool table in there? Maybe there's a pool table also. I think
there might be. It kind of reminds me. It kind of reminds me of the break room / game room in Strange Brew.
Okay. Yeah.
It kind of has that same look to it, like the same shape. Like it's like just like a rectangle room that has some games and stuff in it, and it's sort of a break room, game room kind of thing. For employees to just hang out on their breaks. And so Danny's playing darts, and he goes to pull the darts out of the dartboard, and he turns around, and these two girls are standing in the doorway.
We also get like a little high pitched tone. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's always like a key with Danny. I mean, when you get that, there's not always with him, I guess, but that will happen sometimes. And he looks around, he sees them, and they just look at him.
They don't say anything.
They're holding each other's hands. Mm-hmm. They turn around.
And they turn around and walk out of the room. But they don't just turn around. Like they don't let go of each other's hands. One turns around the other one as they're walking out. You'd think they would both do a 180, then let go of their hands, do a 180, then grab the other hand. But no, they stay holding hands. One walks around the other one as she turns around.
Yes. They completely just rotate.
Yeah. and then they just walk out of the room. Very creepy.
It just one always needs to be on the left. The other always needs to be on the right.
Yep. Yeah. Creepy little kids.
I mean, my question is, like, were they always that creepy, or did they get that creepy after being chopped to death by their
good
father?
question. That is a good question. But then we have
enjoying them forever.
Yeah. Forever. And ever and ever.
Anyway,
forever.
So while this is going on, his parents are getting the tour. Like, it was seeing like our famous Colorado Lounge, and Wendy's impressed by the place.
Yes.
She's like ecstatic.
Which interesting thing about the Colorado room, by the way. Which did they go to the Colorado room in the tour, or was it just the Gold Lounge?
They go there in the tour. They go through a lot of different places.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the Colorado room, interesting, which is where like there's some major events that happen in this room in the movie.
Yes. No, it becomes like one of the main spots.
Like it becomes, because, like, Jack's writing office, all that. But this,
my best guess is like you can kind of imagine this being above that main lobby.
Yeah.
Right? Because like there's windows that look out towards the front of the hotel, like the parking lot is. There's a giant fireplace in this room, which somehow Jack knows how to light a massive ass fire.
Yeah. So the set for this room, for the Colorado room, big, beautiful room, really. Like, I really like how this room's set up. But it was built on one of the stages at Elstree Studios in England. And they had, in order to have, the light coming in, I mean, they had these huge, like, set lights all outside of the room, right? And actually, a lot of times in this movie, because it was a lot of, like, the interiors were all on stages. Right. It was all sets that were built on sound stages and stuff. And they had so many lights just shining in on everybody that it heated everything up so much. Shiny. But yeah, there's just so much heat coming off these lights that a lot of times when, the scenes were done, the actors would, strip off as many clothes as they could just to cool down because of all the heat.
Right.
Between scenes. But in this particular room, the Colorado room, those lights ended up catching the set on fire. And so, luckily they had their scenes filmed in that room by then. Mm-hmm. But after the fire, the Colorado room set was rebuilt with higher ceilings and then used as the Well of Souls in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Interesting.
Yeah, so then he takes them to the Gold Ballroom, which is another major set piece in the movie.
Yes. And when he's like, I bet we could have a big party in here.
Yep. And Ullman's like,
you have to provide your own booze. We take all the alcohol out because obviously, like,
because there's
all the alcohol.
Yeah. There's more licenses we got to have.
Yeah. So and if there's no one there to drink it, that's the one thing they have to cover themselves.
Yep.
Is the alcohol.
Yep.
Unless the ghosts want to provide it.
Yes, unless the ghosts want to provide it. But yeah, so they're like, that's okay. That's just fine with us. We don't drink.
And that's not entirely true.
Yeah. So then we have Ullman's assistant bringing Danny in, saying that we found him looking for you guys. Yep. So, and this is when Scatman Crothers comes in.
Well, I should say, I think we missed a few other points in here. Like, we actually, at this point, I think they have shown them the apartment because Danny's not there when they show them the apartment.
Yeah.
Right?
You're right.
This is like, you have a room for your child, and you got like a living room, your bedroom, and a bathroom, and a small kitchen, right? And they're like, oh, it's very cozy, right? And they also tour the outside where they talk about the hedge maze.
Yes, that's right.
Like, this is our famous hedge maze, and it's like I wouldn't want to, I want to be in there unless I had like a couple of hours to spare. Which, granted, they're about to have several hours to spare if they really want it, right?
Mm-hmm. They're about to have 5 months worth of hours to spare.
But they're gonna, they talk about how they had to repel some Indian attacks while they were building it. Mm-hmm. Right? At least he believes so. That's what he said.
Which I think, didn't he mention that during the interview initially when he said it was built on an Indian burial ground?
I don't think he said that. I think he just said it was built on the ancient burial ground. But maybe he did.
Okay, yeah, because I thought he was like, it was built on an Indian burial ground. And in fact, we had to dispel a few native invasions while they were building it.
Look in the Colorado Lounge where they're touring through there. And he talks about how all the best people stayed there back in the day, right? Back in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
But again, like you talked about, they have a massive fireplace there.
Yeah, because it was the wall there. Construction started.
They have different tapestries that are very kind of like Southwestern, like Native American motifs, right? Kind of very Aztec-y, Navajo, not Aztec, but like very Navajo imagery.
Yeah, you're right. This is when he talks about. He didn't talk about the Indian burial ground in the interview. It's this part when they're right after he shows them the hedge maze. But yeah, construction started in 1917. It finished in 1919. I believe is what he says.
That's right. That's what they said. So yeah, but then by the time they get to the gold room, we'll talk about that. That's when the woman comes in with Danny, and she found him, milling around, and so now they decide they're gonna go tour like the kitchen.
Yeah, because O'Halloran, or
the bowels.
Dick Halloran joins Scatman Crothers. He's the head cook, the head chef of the hotel.
Now, I gotta say, I kind of want to know. Like, I get they're gonna have a bunch of frozen food and canned stuff for them over the winter. Mm-hmm. But like, is that what they mostly serve at the hotel for the dinners? Is a bunch of stuff that's.
I always got that impression that,
which doesn't make it seem like it's that luxurious. I don't know, but like, I mean, maybe things have changed in the last 40 years in terms of how stuff like that is done. There's less farm to table and all that, but.
I always got the impression that it was
Crothers' cooking ability, because I bet he can cook a mean dinner.
He seems like the kind of guy that can cook better than Gordon Ramsay.
Yeah,
I mean, I would love to eat a meal prepared by Scatman Crothers.
So he goes off. So I mean, at this point, they kind of separate a bit, where it's just Wendy, Danny, and Scatman.
Yeah.
So Wendy could understand. Wendy's going to be in the kitchen.
Yeah. So Scatman shows Wendy and Danny the kitchen and like the pantries and the walk-in freezer and all that stuff and like all this food, and he's saying there's so much food in here you can eat for an entire year and never have the same menu twice.
They got all these rib roast and chicken legs and rib eyes and all this stuff, and so you see the freezer with all the meat, and then they go into the dry food section, right? The
dry storage,
and he talks about all the other things they have. And I think what's interesting about this, like, it gets really highlighted later in the movie, because we're in here twice, essentially.
Yeah.
But the Calumet baking powder.
Yes.
This is the Indian head.
Yes. This is one of the big discussion points in that Room 237 documentary.
Yeah. Which is not like this scene, like it's a little bit more passing. Like it's really focused in that second scene later in the movie.
Then there's also, Tang, like cans of Tang.
I was going to say there's also Tang.
Which, I mean, there's a lot of imagery and stuff in this movie that, leads people to believe the rumors and theories about, Kubrick staging the moon landing.
The moon landing, right? Because Tang is the astronauts. Yeah. He made 2001, and later in the movie, there's a sweater that's got
Apollo 11 on it. Yeah. Then there's a bunch of other references to the number 11 and, all the stuff that references Apollo 11.
It's just Stanley Kubrick fucking with everybody.
Yeah. Yeah, I personally don't believe that Kubrick staged the moon landing. I believe that it happened.
I'm not into that conspiracy
theory. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
I'm not into many conspiracy theories, to be honest. I'm not.
Yeah.
Anyway, but food's always interesting in this movie.
I think that we actually went to the moon in '69. But
yeah, 69. But yeah, but like it's funny. There's also like a bunch of Heinz, all the this giant cans of relish. How much relish are they using in this hotel?
I noticed that too. They're giant cans of relish. Yeah.
Like, are they serving that many hot dogs?
Like, I get the giant cans of ketchup.
Yes.
Because a lot of people use ketchup.
Yes.
But not as many people use relish. So why are there so many giant cans of relish? And I mean, it's a high class hotel because they have Heinz ketchup.
Yes.
It's not Hunt's. It's not some off-brand, fancy ketchup.
No,
it's Heinz ketchup. It's the elite ketchup. But so he's showing them all this stuff, and then meanwhile, right before they go into the dry storage pantry, then we get Scatman, which we're gonna keep calling him Scatman.
Yeah,
even though his character's name is Dick Halloran, he's Scatman Crothers. So we get a glimpse of him, him and Danny sharing a little telepathic conversation.
Yeah,
a little bit
he's
of fun.
Kind of talking to Wendy.
Yeah,
but then again, you kind of get that high pitched tone.
Mm-hmm. And he looks down at Danny, over, and you can tell Danny's hearing something.
Talking.
Yeah,
like, how do you like some ice cream, Doc?
Yeah. And then he takes him into the pantry and shows him all the dry goods. But yeah, there's some interesting food choices in there.
There's a lot of rice, which okay, I kind of get, but I don't really expect that type of place to serve a lot of rice either.
Yeah.
It's not a sushi restaurant. Anyway,
yeah. But
there's even a little conversation though within that, because like at some point as he's speaking to Danny out loud, he calls him Doc. And Wendy's like,
yeah,
how do you know we call him Doc?
Yeah, while they're in the pantry, he calls him Doc twice.
Yes.
And then when they get out of the pantry, then Wendy's like,
yeah, because he's asking Danny about his favorite food.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you think about that, Doc?
Yeah.
It's like, what's your favorite food? French fries and ketchup.
So I think we can manage that, Doc. And so when they're
again, I mean, it's actually not a bad choice, right? And again, there's plenty of ketchup. Heinz ketchup too, not Hunt's.
Yep.
No,
it's the good stuff. But yeah, so when they get out of the dry goods pantry, then Wendy's like, "Well, how did you know we call him Doc?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know. I must have. You just called him Doc twice in there." It's like, "I must have heard you say it." I must have
heard you say it. Like, I don't think we did.
Well, that's possible, but I don't think we've called him Doc since we got here. He's like, "Oh, well,
he looks like a Doc.
He looks like a Doc."
Does he? I don't know. Anyway.
So then he does the whole, "Yeah, what's up, Doc?"
And then, Jack and the rest of the crew come back and they need to borrow Wendy, right?
Yes.
They need to show them how to operate like the boiler and everything.
All the stuff that Jack was hired to do.
It's like, we're going to let your wife handle that. She's going to cook and she's going to do your job.
Yeah.
And anyway, Scatman like, that's okay. I was, do you mind if I give, Danny some ice cream? Like, we don't mind that.
I'm like, yeah, that's fine. He's like, what's your favorite kind of ice cream, Doc?
Chocolate.
I said, chocolate. Then chocolate it shall be.
Because Scatman is definitely a chocolate fan, as we discussed.
So he takes Danny over to get him some ice cream, and Jack and Wendy go and continue the tour.
And he asks Danny, like, do you know how I knew your name was Doc?
And Danny kind of shrugs.
Danny just kind of shrugs.
And he's like, well,
it's almost like an element of like, I don't know, it's obviously not intended. It's almost an element of like stranger danger.
Yeah. Yeah.
To how he portrays it.
But then he goes on to explain how he and his grandmother used to carry on conversations and never say a word.
And how his grandmother called it shining.
Yes. His grandmother called it having the shine. And
I can see Scatman and his grandmother.
Oh, yeah.
Somewhere in like Alabama or Georgia, maybe South Carolina.
Absolutely.
On a porch.
Absolutely.
Just talking about
just shining. Just shining. Yeah.
Just shining on.
Yeah, I can totally see that. In fact, I want that movie.
I want that movie too now. Who's playing Scatman?
Good question. Donald Glover.
Who's playing the grandmother?
Octavia Spencer.
I was going to say Angela Bassett, but okay, yeah. I can take Octavia Spencer. So, but finally Danny talks, and like, Scatman just kind of gets the sense that Danny, knows stuff about the hotel and wants to know how he knows about it. And it's like he talks about Tony. It's like the little boy lives inside my mouth. Did Tony ever tell you anything about the Overlook? And he's just like, I don't know.
He's like, did Tony tell you not to say anything? And he nods his head. It's like, yes. And, but while talking about the shine, about, shining, Scatman mentions that, for the longest time, he thought that he and his grandma were the only ones that could do it. Mm-hmm. But then he learned that, there are other people and even some places that shine.
I was about to say, there's places that shine.
And the Overlook is one of those places.
And Danny talks like, are you scared of this place? And it's really interesting. They don't. The book gets a lot more of the actual, I guess, detail what shining really is, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's not, scared of it. He's just saying that things get left behind sometimes, like burnt toast.
Yeah.
And that, things that you see are more just pictures in a book. They can't harm you, which is find out later.
We find out later is very not true.
So, all of that, like, it's not as concerned about all of the, I guess, the physics of Shining or whatever you want to say it. It's Kubrick's interested in something else. So Stephen King was interested in something else too. He was much more about the breakdown of the family than what I think Kubrick is probably trying to say in this movie. So, but finally get Danny asking about, like, just brings up, what about room 237?
Yeah, because that was one of the things that Tony showed Danny was room 237.
And Scatman stops and turns white.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what about 237?
And he's like, Don't ever go in that room.
Like, there's no need.
Yeah, there's no need to ever go in that room, so you don't even go near it.
Well, I mean, then why should I not go near it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know?
I mean, he's a 7-year-old kid.
He's not gonna,
or a 5-year-old kid.
He's not going to go all the way to that. So he does. He is speaking that way.
Yeah.
So, and he's just saying that there's he puts it kind of out there. It's like, there's things that happened here a long time ago. Some were good and some were bad.
Yeah.
So tells about 237, and then I love it. You go back to the title cards, and like we get each. This is like Monday or Tuesday, and like we don't even know.
No. The title card is 1 month later.
That's right.
Yeah. So the first of those title cards is 1 month later.
And
as things progress, then it goes by day. But
and then like even then like we get like multiple some of those days in a week. Like it's like the last week and a half or whatever it is. We see. So, but Wendy, she's in the bathrobe. She's got the nice food service cart.
Mm-hmm.
She brings up Jack.
Yeah, she brings breakfast to Jack.
Some bacon and some runny eggs and all these things. It's like, we must have stayed up
just like he likes.
You must have stayed up late again last night.
Yeah. And he's like, what time is it? And she's like, 11:30. It's about 11:30. He's like, 11:30?
What they didn't realize is that this also gave them plenty of time for other activities, which we don't see.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of glad.
Yeah.
I don't need to see that side of Jack Nicholson.
Yeah. So he's eating his bacon and dip it into the egg yolk and all that. And
I just say we love this place
the whole time. So this whole like scene here, they don't really show Jack like directly. It's through a mirror.
No, there's many things about mirrors also in this movie.
So the whole conversation here,
there's a dresser, right? It's a large dresser, and it has one of those like oval mirrors that's like in the middle of it that can kind of like rotate. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So the camera's set up at an angle where you can see Jack in the mirror. Yes. And so during this whole conversation,
in on him in the mirror.
Yeah. You only see him through the mirror in this conversation. And it's real interesting how they did that. But
I'm always interested in the placement of this room too, because we're gonna find out later, right? Because you walk in and there's some steps kind of going up to the main living area there, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Danny's room's off to the right, and the main area is off to the left. And you kind of have like the little dining area and kitchenette, living area, and just beyond that, right, is like the master bedroom, and then off of that is the bathroom, which is like a typical hotel bathroom, right? And if you see later, there's a window, which is important later in the movie. Okay. But when they walk down the hall, it seems like there's probably another room on the other side of that room of where the bathroom would be. Yeah. Even though there's a window.
The floor plan of this hotel is completely wonky.
It gets back to the floor plan, right? You have we see windows on the one side of it, which makes fine. That makes good sense. But the window in the bathroom does not make sense. It's important that it becomes a window there.
Yeah. But as we see later, the window in the bathroom does go outside.
It's a movie. But we don't want to worry about the logic of the sets or continuity, for that matter. Right? So, but yeah, they're in there, and again, it's 11:30, and he's in his whether he sleeps in, and we get from the mirror, right? And it's funny because we're probably a little over a third of the way through the movie at this point, right? And again, there's not a whole lot that's really happened in this movie.
No.
Which is
really
fun,
not,
because slow burn movies happen like that, right? We've set up the main part of this, right? Like who the characters are, the setting, and now you're moving into the meat of the movie. So, Yeah, but he starts commenting how like he loves it here, and he feels like he's always been here,
Yeah.
and how he should know what's around every corner, right?
Yeah.
And it's important for later in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and when he's talking, it's like, what can we do today, right? It's like, oh yeah,
He's like, think you take me for a walk
Jack's
outside?
like, oh, I think I should just write my book.
Yeah, he's
It's
like, I got a lot of work I need to do.
What work do you have to do?
Yeah.
Like, okay,
Because
I get you're trying to write a book, but 1 hour outside, yeah, what's that going to do?
yeah. Kind of like in The Sandlot when Dennis Leary's like, I got a lot of work I got to do, and Karen Allen's like, well, can't you take a half hour to play catch with him?
Like, it's the weekend, Dennis. Come on.
Yeah.
It's like everything's in working order in the hotel right now. The power's on. The heat's on.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing's breaking down.
But then we get
right.
Then we get Jack in the Colorado room when he should be writing. He's got writer's block, and he's just throwing a tennis ball against the wall.
Right. Which is reasonable if you're trying to find ways, but like this almost primal part of it, right?
Mm-hmm. But he's throwing that ball hard.
He's throwing it hard. And it's going against those like kind of like tapestries, excuse me, like the Navajo, Pueblo, kind of southwestern. Excuse me. And like all of a sudden, like he seems different than what we saw. In the previous scene,
but not as different as he will be in a little bit after Danny's riding his tricycle.
Yeah,
so yeah, he seems maybe a little bit frustrated because he's got writer's block. Right, you can write it off as that right now.
But it's interesting because, like, okay, so Danny and Wendy are outside. They're running around the snow, and so they're going to go into the hedge maze. They're going to walk around it, right? Yeah. Because they got all the time in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So they go into the hedge maze.
Why not?
They get lost a few times, and then finally they make it to the center.
Meanwhile, after Jack is finished throwing the tennis ball against the wall, he sees they have a massive miniature
of the hedge maze.
Yeah. And he looks down, and now he's peering into it. And
then we get this overhead
his look
shot.
Here is different than his kind of look that we saw from the mirror earlier.
Yeah, and then him looking at the model kind of morphs into an overhead shot of the hedge maze as they're making it to the center.
Yes.
So it's almost like he's watching them, from above.
Yeah. Like, it's funny just how quickly the mood of that kind of shifts, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like innocuous a bit. Just like, oh yeah, here's your nice breakfast. Got bacon for you. I got eggs. They're happy. And then, like, you don't see the two of them happy together again for the rest of the movie.
No, you don't. Because then next, after Wendy and Danny are in the hedge maze, Danny's riding his tricycle around the hotel, and again, like he's riding down on the bottom floor, and he's making all these turns, going around
3 different scenes where he's just riding the tricycle around again.
Yep.
Sometimes it makes sense where he's riding kind of through like the kitchen and the bottom part of it, but it was running on like the
upper levels.
The upper levels,
the second and third floors,
where the rooms are. It makes zero sense.
Yeah, because he's making turns that shouldn't be there based off the floor plan of the ground floor, and it's just it's weird how different it is. And that room 237 actually goes into detail about this. Like they have a little map that they made based off of his route with the tricycle. and how they don't match up. The floor plans just don't match up.
I don't know if so the Netflix series House on Haunted Hill, the first season, I think definitely takes a lot of inspiration from this because, like, they have different, kind of like Lost, we have different episodes that are really more featured on different characters' point of views, right? And with how they do the TV series is basically like different episodes, like, is a flashback to when they're kids in this house that's kind of haunted, and they all have the house plays on them, each one of them differently.
Yeah.
So they experience it differently, right? It almost feels like it's taking this inspiration from The Shining and how it's playing off them differently.
Yeah.
And how they experience the hotel.
Yeah. So Danny's riding his bike, his tricycle, and he rides past room 237. And he stops. Yep. And he gets up. He hesitantly stands up, walks over to the room. The doors are shut. This is a room that has 2 doors, and the doors are shut.
Yeah, this is like a big suite in the like it's high paced suite, whatever it'd be like. Yeah, it's got a double door to go into it, right?
And so he goes and he grabs the doorknob and he tries to turn it, but it's locked.
It's locked.
And here's the thing: so anytime that Danny interacts with room 237, coincides with Jack's major changes.
Yes.
So anytime right after Danny does anything with that room, that's when you see, like, immediately after, you see a major change in Jack.
It's all Danny's fault.
Yeah.
That little son of a bitch.
Yep. If he had just stayed away from that room like Halloran told him to, like Scatman told him to, then this movie wouldn't have happened.
Any kids out there? Listen to Scatman Crothers.
Yes, if Scatman Crothers tells you to stay away from a specific room, stay away from that room.
Anyway, so what's funny about it, it's like, I don't know if it's funny, but at this point, it seems like Danny, again, he remembers talking about 237. He's still interested in 237, right? And he touches it, and he gets a picture again, or a vision again, of the girls.
Yeah.
Right? And he's like, it's like a right,
it's just a real quick flash.
But like, it seems like, I don't know if it's just a flash of that or a flash of something else that he also has that we don't see yet. Right? And he doesn't like it, and he gets back to his tricycle
and he rides on,
pushes his wheel off, and he rides off. But then the next thing,
we get
the music gets more intense, and you hear the big dump in the typewriter.
Yeah, you hear Jack typing away.
There's no laptops yet. It's all typewriter.
Yeah, it's like all of a sudden his writer's block is gone, and he's just typing away. Typing.
Again, we never... It's... I hesitate to say this, but it was... not many things we see actually from his perspective, right? Like, we see his perspective as he's kind of looking down into the hedge maze, right? So you kind of, like we were just saying earlier, like, it was kind of a brief shot there where, like, it feels like, okay, this part is like, it's what he's watching of them, right?
Yeah.
And there's a few other aspects of it where you kind of get his perspective a little bit, but not a whole lot.
Yeah.
When he's typing away, and then, again, we don't even see what he's typing. He's just typing.
No, he's just typing.
He gets down to the next line.
And Wendy comes in.
Wendy comes in. Oh, and again, like, it's so weird, like, how quickly this shifts, right?
So she comes in to just check on him, make sure he's doing okay, and,
and, like, she wants to have, like, a nice, like, evening. It's really, it's like, oh yeah, it's the storm, and, like, like, the weatherman said this, and he's like, what the fuck do you want me to do about it? I don't know who drops the F-bomb here, but it's like, what do you want me to do about it?
No, he does drop the F-bomb in the scene. I don't know if it's right then, but he does drop it a couple of times in the scene. He does drop it a couple times in the scene. Yeah.
It's like, we can do this and that.
He's like, and then she can tell he's frustrated and impatient. And so she's like, okay, well, I'll tell you what. How about I go make you a couple sandwiches? I'll bring them in here later. And then, maybe a little bit later,
show me what you've written.
I can read some of what you've written. And then he is like, you know what? Every time you come in here, you distract me. And I lose my place. So as long as you hear me typing in here, do not come in. That means I'm working.
I love how he does it. He looks at her, he kind of smiles. He does one finger at a time. And
he's like,
if you know what, if you've seen the movie, you know how it sounds. And if you ever use a typewriter, you know how it sounds.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, her facial, she plays it well. It just changes.
Mm-hmm.
And she's dejected. And she's like, okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, now why don't you start and get the fuck out of here? And again, it's Nicholson, so he does it well.
Yeah.
He does it really well.
It's this complete opposite reaction than he should be having to her coming in and checking on him.
Like, again, most of this movie, you kind of feel of him being not the warmest husband.
Yeah, but, especially like in contrast to the breakfast scene just a few minutes earlier.
Yes.
He's just carrying on a pleasant conversation with her while he's eating breakfast. And now, later in that day, he's yelling at her for checking on him. For coming and seeing if he's doing okay.
Yep. Here's what happens. So, and so far, like, this is the first time, like, Wendy's not been, like, for her, the first time she's alarmed about something, right?
Yeah.
Because she's enjoyed bringing breakfast to him, making it, staying up late, waking up late, going outside with her son.
Yeah. She goes having to this family
She
time.
goes to Ullman's office where they have the CB radio.
Uh-huh.
And she enjoys talking with the forestry station.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, because she noticed that the phone line, because she tried to make a phone call and the phone lines were down. And so she called the ranger station and they're like, yeah, because there was a storm that was a winter storm that was coming up, and like, yeah, the storm, knocked out the phones, and it does this every year, and typically when that happens, then people are just out of phones until spring.
And they're saying, let's just keep it on because you never know when they're going to need to call us.
Yeah, yeah. So he's like, keep the radio on, and that way we can contact each other.
We'll see him again later in the movie.
Yep.
Not that much later, actually.
Well, we won't see him again. We'll see the other ranger that's in the room with him.
That's right. We do see the other ranger. Yes.
It seems like his supervisor or something.
Yeah.
His boss.
Not Park Rangers, the Forestry Service. So,
the Forestry
Park
Service.
Rangers are in Department of Interior. Forestry Service is different. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, if you want me to get into the intricacies of
that's a whole nother
government
podcast.
Agencies.
That's a whole nother podcast that we can do. Because I think you and I know enough about all the other agencies that we can have a whole nother show.
Yeah. Anyhow, so and then again now then we get like Danny again. He's riding all around again. We see him again, and then right, and he's riding the corner, and all of a sudden, you get the music, and all of a sudden you get the boom, and he turns a corner. And again, like, where is this corner? I had no idea
where is this corner. It's a dead end. Like, it's a dead end hallway. He turns a corner. It's a dead end hallway.
And there's two creepy girls at the end.
There's two creepy girls. The same two girls that were in the game room. The same two girls he's been seeing in his visions that Tony's been showing him. And this time they actually speak.
Like, okay. And again, right before we get to that, like, again, he's running around this hotel I mean, at this point, we don't know how long it's been.
We don't know. It's been a month that they've been there.
It's been long enough that he probably knows exactly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Even if he's 5 or 6 years old, you ride your bike, wherever it is, long enough, you know all the paths around where you're riding it. He would know if he's riding into a dead end.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he rides in a dead end with these girls at the end of it. And they're like, come play with us, Danny.
Hello, Danny. Come play with us.
Would you like some tea?
Come play with us forever and ever and ever. And then he gets these glimpses of, it sort of flashes between the girls standing there and then these two dead bodies of these girls, all bloody, laying on the ground, like laying on the floor in the hallway.
I thought you were going to say it was Tim Roth and Rob Roy.
No. No, it won't. No, not Tim Roth and Rob Roy. Although that is a movie we need to do. That's a great movie. I love that movie.
He's so flamboyant in that movie.
Yes, he is.
Like, that would be a vision to have there, where these girls just like, come play with us.
And Tim Roth. But so it's just flashes of the girl standing there and then lying dead on the floor, bloody, with blood splattered all over the walls.
Yeah, they're not quite stacked yet.
No. But they're laying on the ground. There's an axe laying on the floor too, a bloody axe laying in front of them.
Where did the shotgun come from? We never see the shotgun in this movie.
No, we don't. We don't. But yeah, Grady.
We get to see the axe.
Grady hacked his family up with an axe and then shot himself in the head with a shotgun. And so yeah, where's the shotgun? But anyway, so after Danny sees this, he covers his eyes, and then when he uncovers them, they're gone.
And then the girls Tony are gone. Speaks. Just like pictures in a book.
Yep. Yeah, Tony reminds him of what Scatman said. It's just like pictures in a book.
Is that the scene that that's not when he kind of shines out to Scatman yet, is it?
No, that's not until after
next.
That so the when he shines out to Scatman, that's not until after he goes into room 237.
Right.
So
that's what I thought.
Yeah. So he so next we have we have Jack. He's typing away. We just hear the typing coming from the Colorado room. And then what? Is there more that goes on?
Last night.
Yeah, I did. I did just watch this last night. But because there's 3 different sequences where he's riding his tricycle.
Right, there's different sequences,
and I'm trying to remember how much happened between the second and third.
And this is the crazy thing about this movie is that that's why it gets so odd, because this all kind of bleeds together.
Because Jack doesn't go into the gold room for the first time by himself until after the experience in room 237.
Yes, no, he's already been. Yeah, Danny's already been in 237.
So
there we go. All right, here we go. Tony, I'm scared. There we go. All right. Oh, that's what it is. Yes, I know where it is now. Thank you. All right, I figured it out. Right. So now it's the next. We don't know if it's the next morning, right? But we get Danny and Wendy. They're in the Colorado Lounge, and they're watching TV.
Yes, that's right.
Right, and some I was just saying, is it a cartoon? There's a scene where they have Tony Dow in the movie. It's a TV show.
Yeah.
Right? Which is funny. Tony, I'd never connected that part before, but Tony Dow, the Beaver's older brother.
Yep.
Right?
Wally.
It's late morning. And
Yeah, and he wants
Danny
to. Yeah,
wants
Danny
to go
wants to
back
go get his
to
fire
get his
truck.
truck.
He wants to go get his fire truck. That's right.
And again, it's like so it's interesting because it's definitely late morning. They
Yeah,
haven't
it's
haven't
late morning.
established that yet, and they will in a minute. And when he's like, well, Daddy went to bed late last night. He's sleeping. You gotta be quiet. And he's like, well, I won't make a noise. I'll be quiet.
Like, I promise.
He's like, okay, well, when you get back, I'm going to make lunch.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's how you know that it's late morning.
So
Danny goes up very quietly.
Like why exactly is he, like, I get why he might be staying up late with his wife and maybe writing. I don't know. But like, again, if you're not, which will be established later, he's not doing much around the hotel. Not doing much writing. Again, like, what all is happening?
Yeah.
Right? Like, the more you think about this movie, like, the more questions you start to get.
Yeah.
And so he goes there, right?
So yeah, Danny very quietly opens up the door.
He's doing a really good job of being quiet.
But as he walks by the master bedroom, he looks over and Jack is sitting on the bed, just staring straight ahead.
Into like Jack, and he's just like sitting there, like
just staring straight ahead.
It's so funny. Like, you have the scene where he's looking between this scene and the scene where he's looking in the hedge maze, like he's unshaven. He looks almost animalistic. Right?
Yeah. And he turns and he sees Danny.
He invites him over to the bed, and it's funny how Danny looks reluctant. Like,
yeah, he does.
He sees shit that we have not seen him seen.
Yeah, yeah. He knows something about that. Like he knows something's off about his dad. We get it
kind of right away because he looks at his dad's like, "You would never hurt mommy and me, would you?"
Yeah, he just flat out asks him that. He's like, "You'd never hurt mommy and me, right?"
Like, not many 5-year-olds just say, "You would never."
Yeah.
Axe murder us.
Yeah. He's like, no, of course I wouldn't. So, okay. But yeah, he's talking to Danny about the hotel. He's like, do you like it here? He's like, I love it here. And
I wish we could stay here forever.
Yeah, I wish we could stay here forever and ever and ever. Same thing the girl said.
It's, yeah. It's really funny how they play that very casually.
Yeah.
But it's a very great juxtaposition. And yeah.
Yeah, so
I guess I just saw that Wally's character on TV that we see here is Hermie.
Hermie.
Reminds me of Rudolph.
Yes, exactly. Me too. I thought that too. The elf and Rudolph.
Because what other popular pop culture character is named Hermie?
Yep. Which, I mean, was Hermie the elf really an elf? Because his ears weren't pointed like the other elves.
Yeah, I have so many questions about that TV show too.
Yeah, about that TV movie. Yeah, maybe we should do that one of these days.
Maybe we should. We should do. But yeah, that would be what we want to do. Like I would say like Charlie Brown Christmas, but it's only 30 minutes. We can get through that pretty quickly. Yeah. But like it's an hour long one. So
yep.
I don't know if this is true or not because like I just quickly looked at the screenplay and apparently in this scene, Jack calls Danny Doc.
Does he do that in the actual?
I would need to check back and look at that because that's a very interesting wrinkle in the this. If he actually calls him Doc.
Yes, it is. Yeah, maybe he does.
Because if he does, that's really interesting. If he does, I need to
rewatch that scene.
That's right, but there's other details within this, so right because it's funny because it's almost an adult conversation that he has with this 5-year-old. It's like he's like I'm too tired. It's like, why don't you sleep, Dad? It's like, I've got too much work to do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's like, it's like it's almost like a conversation that he should be having with his wife about this. Like, maybe they're having it. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they are.
But like when he asked about the whole thing, it's like, did your mother ever tell you that? Like, there's this suspicions all along about that he had. Like, you don't get it really in that first interaction. Like back when he has the interview and he's on the phone saying he has a job, that he has this suspicion about his wife, right? But the next time you see the two of them, it's again they're driving there, and like he already seems annoyed with his wife as they're driving to the hotel. Right? It's like he saw it on the television, right? It all goes back to that.
Yeah.
So now this is not a tricycle scene, right? Because you get the outside the hotel and we get back in and it gets into the hotel. And I love the scene where it's like, again, the
and
way
real quick. And so in the apartment scene, so we've got.
Yes, actually, I'm glad you brought this up because I thought about this when I was watching.
Yeah, so we see from the bedroom.
You get the mirror.
We get the bedroom, and we see the back of Jack's head looking toward Danny coming in the front door of the apartment, and we see Jack in the mirror. Like, so we see the backside of Jack's head and then the mirror while he's talking to Danny while Danny's over by the door. So that's another interesting. Yep, there we go. Yes, and so he does call him Doc because he calls Danny over.
Crazy.
He calls Danny over, has him sit on his lap, and he kind of wraps his arm around him. Rests his head on his shoulder. And he's like, "How's it going, Doc?"
And it's so interesting because like this entire scene is awkward.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a very relaxed father-son.
No, Danny is tense as hell. He's just sitting there like resting his head on his dad's shoulder. It's just really awkward.
It's weird. It's not like a There's no like pedophilic type thing going on here.
No, it's just
there's something else going on with it that's really weird and off, and yet you still have Doc in there.
Yeah.
Again, we were texting the other day. Like I discovered new things, and here's one we're talking about it. And we think about something.
And we have seen this movie
done this before
several times. We have both seen this movie several times, and yeah, it always seeing something new.
Yep. So. Anyway, so that ends, and now again you get the exterior of the hotel, you get the lit windows in there, and you go in, and again, like you have no idea where this hallway is within this hotel.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's not on the tricycle, but he's just on the floor, and he's playing
he's on the floor
like,
playing with his cars
and little right
with like an interesting carpet.
Is so weird.
Yeah, there's like geometric shapes and stuff all over this carpet. Like hexagons and all that. And he's using those sort of as a road for his cars.
Which makes sense. I get that.
And then a tennis ball rolls over. And he looks up from where the tennis ball came from. And he sees room 237. And the door is open.
Yeah. And this is where he's wearing the Apollo 11 sweater.
Yes. This is where he's wearing the Apollo 11 sweater. And so he stands up and he walks over to the room. And the key is sitting in the lock.
Yeah, so it's in the lock.
Yeah, the key is in the lock. And the door is open. And he sort of walks in there.
And this is where you get one of those actual tracking shots where it kind of tracks slightly into the
slightly into the room, right? But then it cuts to the Colorado room.
Yes.
And
then Jack he's kind of working
Jack's
away.
Typing away. And Wendy walks in.
Well, it's before that because now she's actually down like in the boiler room, and she's working on the things.
That's
and
right.
She hears this moaning, and it's
That's right.
funny,
Yeah, because
like,
because Jack's not typing. He's sleeping.
he's sleeping.
He's having a
What's
nightmare.
funny about this scene, I think, and it's interesting, is if you look at this as a ghost story, right?
Mhm.
It's a haunted house type movie, hot story. When she's down there, all of a sudden she starts hearing this moaning. You'd almost kind of think it's like a ghostly type of moan.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? But it's Jack. He's right. He's having
and
a
then the
nightmare.
moans turn into the screams.
Yes.
And he's having a nightmare. So she runs into the Colorado room where he's, slumped over the desk, his writing desk, and, he's dreaming. And so she goes and wakes him up. And while they're, going over, and he tells her, I had a nightmare. I dreamed that I killed you and Danny.
And like now this, like, is this like the last semblance that we see of the somewhat normal or like his baseline that maybe I hadn't even really seen before in this movie? I mean,
this is right after Danny went into the room.
Yes.
And Jack is having this nightmare. And he wakes up in tears. He's like, I had a nightmare. I dreamed that I killed you and Danny. And, while she's sitting there trying to comfort him, Danny comes walking in real slow.
She's hearing this. She's like, oh, wow. Like, that's a...
That's not a normal dream.
That's a weird thing to hear. Like,
But then Danny, it shows from behind Danny. It shows him he's walking in.
And again, it's a big
and you can tell, his shirt is kind of his, just even from the back, his sweater is kind of torn and his collar's kind of disheveled.
His hair kind of looks disheveled.
And
right. But again, it's a large area. Right.
Yeah.
And he's kind of in the shadow there.
And he's just walking real slow.
And all she sees is him just kind of walking in. She's like, go back to your room.
Yeah, she's like, go back, Danny. It's okay. I need to help Daddy. And as he gets closer,
he keeps walking, and then you see him. He's sucking his thumb.
Yeah, he's sucking his thumb. And she sees that, and she's like, "That's odd." So she runs over to Danny, and when she gets closer, and she pulls his thumb out of his mouth, she notices he's got a bruise on his neck.
Yeah, and she sees that the sweater's torn, and then she looks like over at Jack. She's like, "You did this to him," and she starts saying, "You son of a bitch!" Right? Mm-hmm. And obviously she's angry. Like,
yeah. Because they're the only three people in this hotel.
Right.
So if she didn't do it and he didn't do it to himself, then it would be, reasonable to assume that Jack is the one that did it. So she picks Danny up.
He just admitted to having a dream of murdering his family.
Yeah. So she picks him up and she picks Danny up and takes him out of the room. Which this is the part where, when they were filming this scene to keep Danny Lloyd, protected from the subject matter, during this scene, they never show when the two of them are arguing, they never show Danny. He's always just off frame. So because Danny Lloyd wasn't in the room with them when they were filming that part. And so when she picks him up and carries him out, that's actually a life-size doll that she's picking up and carrying out. So
it makes sense. She brings it to the apartment, and now I love the scene. Like the music's like, again, it's just not even a score, right? And then I love Jack. He's like he just puts his hand up and
he's like,
I have no
just
idea
surprised. He's like, what's going on? What are you talking about?
But he doesn't seem indignant yet. He gets indignant later.
Yeah, he gets indignant later about it. But now he just goes to the gold ballroom and he sits down at the bar, and the bar is empty. Like Ullman had said earlier, like they take all the liquor out because they don't want to have to pay for all the licenses to keep it in there. And so he's sitting there. He's like, I wish I had a drink right now. I could really use it, just a drink. And then he sort of covers his face. He's like, I would give my soul for a glass of beer. Yep. And then he uncovers his eyes, and Lloyd the bartender is standing there.
And what's interesting about this is, like, again, it's a bar, right? So most classic bars are going to have a mirrored back.
Yes.
Which he's kind of looking into.
Which, do you know what
he says that?
Do you know what
next
the origins?
Point is now you're getting the point of view from behind the bar.
Yes.
Looking at Jack.
Yes. Do you know the origins of the mirror behind the bar, by the way?
Looks up. It's almost like you never know about this point at this scene. It's like, is he just talking to himself?
Yeah, exactly.
And pretending all this is happening. We have no idea.
Yeah.
We don't see Lloyd yet.
It's like, did you ever...
Even at this point, we might see, even the Lloyd we might see in just about the next minute, could just still be perfectly a part of his imagination that becomes real later.
And behind Lloyd, the shelves are all covered, like filled with liquor. Like there's liquor bottles all behind Lloyd. But Lloyd, of course, is played... You can just see him just imagining, like, I'm going to just imagine there's liquor there. Yep.
And I'm going to imagine I'm going to have a glass.
Yeah. And Lloyd is played by Joe Turkel. Excellent actor.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent actor.
He's so good.
He was in Blade Runner. He played Tyrell in Blade Runner.
Yes.
But and this all happened right after, like immediately after Jack said, "I would sell my soul for a glass of beer."
Yeah.
And he opens his eyes and he sees Lloyd standing there, a bar full of booze. And real quick, do you know the origins of the mirror behind the bar? Why most bars have a mirror behind them?
It's basically to see if anyone's going to stick up on them, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it's like back in the Old West when, there were regular occurrences of, bar robberies and stick-ups and stuff like that. Then,
or people had a vendetta against you for
whatever
reason that might be.
There's a mirror behind the bar, but when the bartender was like turned around making drinks, he could see behind him to see if anybody was trying to sneak up on him. And that sort of just became a staple of bars. But yeah, anyway, that's just a little tidbit that doesn't really have any bearing on the movie. But the mirror does.
You can think about that next time you watch Back to the Future Part 3.
But the mirror
and you can listen to our Back to the Future Part 3 episode.
Yes. The mirror absolutely does have a bearing on what's going on in this movie.
Yes.
And we'll get to that a little bit later. But yeah, so he tells Lloyd, I've got a 20 and 210, or I got 2 20s and 2 10s.
Now this is really interesting too. I'm glad you're bringing this up.
That are, that I need to spend.
Yeah, like he's like they're gonna be lonely here until the end.
They're gonna be lonely here until spring. So why don't you give me a bottle of bourbon and a glass and some ice? And so Lloyd goes and grabs. First off, he doesn't grab bourbon.
No, he doesn't.
He grabs a bottle of Jack Daniels, which is a Tennessee whiskey.
No, it's Tennessee whiskey.
It's not a bourbon.
It's not from Kentucky, so it's not bourbon.
Well, even nowadays, bourbon doesn't have to be from Kentucky.
That is true.
But it does have to be at least 51% corn, and Tennessee whiskey is not 51% corn.
No.
So, yeah, there is a distinction between Tennessee whiskey and bourbon, for those of you who don't know that.
Yes.
But, anyway, that's not really important.
It's like if you're using, typically if you're just saying, whiskey, we get into semantics, but,
yeah.
I think of whiskey, anyway.
Yeah. Well, we can get into that another time. But yeah. So anyway, he pours him.
He's not peated. Anyway,
he pours him some Jack while Jack is opening up his wallet and notices it's empty. And he's like, "Oh, sorry.
I seem to be light.
Yeah, I seem to be a little light. How's my credit in this place?" And Lloyd says, "Your credit's just fine." It's like, "Okay, good." So he pours him his drink. And he's drinking it.
I forgot, even right before this.
He's like, I've always liked you, Lloyd.
You're always the best damn bartender from here to Timbuktu to Portland, Oregon.
No, to Portland,
Maine.
No, he's like, from Timbuktu to Portland, Maine, or Portland, Oregon, for that matter.
And Portland, Maine's actually important because, that's clearly a nod to
Yes. To Stephen King.
Stephen King.
Yeah. Because Stephen King is from Maine. So a lot of his stories take place in Maine. But then Lloyd is like, oh, I appreciate that, sir.
Even right before this, I forgot. There's a scene, line, where Jack talks about, as he's getting the bottle for Jack. Jack's like, white man's burden, Lloyd.
Yep. White man's burden. White man's burden.
We want to get back into the
whole Native American
kind of theme coming through this. I got that right there. So
yeah. So, and is there a little bit more that's said here?
There's not much, but it's really important, though. Well, not yet. So he looks at it, right? He's like, here's the 5 miserable months, right, of being on the wagon.
Yeah.
Right. And how much harm it's caused, right?
Yeah.
And then it's the general kind of bartender patron talk about how things are going. And it's funny, like, and again, this is why you're thinking, like, maybe he's imagining all this, because it seems like they know each other. It's a very
like they've known each other for a long time.
Patron conversation of two people that are bartender.
This is his regular bartender for a long time.
Right.
And interesting little thing. Did you ever see Dr. Sleep? The sequel?
No, I have not seen that.
So Dr. Sleep is the Stephen King sequel to The Shining book.
Yes.
Where Danny's older when Danny's an adult.
Uh-huh.
But the movie is sort of a double sequel. It's sort of it works as a sequel to the movie and to the book at the same time.
Okay.
It kind of just the way that it's put together, and it's actually done really well. Mike Flanagan does a really good job with it. But
all right.
Spoiler alert, minor spoiler alert for Dr. Sleep. There's a scene at the hotel at the Overlook where Danny, adult Danny, played by Ewan McGregor, goes into the gold ballroom and he sits down at the bar, and the bartender shows up, but it's not Lloyd.
Yeah.
This bartender looks like Jack. Like, it's clearly, a body double that they've digitally put Jack Nicholson's face on.
Right.
But yeah. But the bartender in Dr. Sleep is Jack.
All right. So you throw that and it brings another wrinkle into this. So because Lloyd asked if he's had any problems. Like, oh, I'm just having a problem with the old sperm bank upstairs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what a way to describe your wife, right?
Especially if theoretically he's thinking about Lloyd being his dad. And so so anyhow, I think just a step back briefly, it's about being light. And in this scene, this is the first scene in the room, or really, I guess, technically second, because we saw it earlier in the tour. And he's like, oh, yeah, thank you for covering me, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, the next time they're in this room,
yes,
his response about
is
the money and being covered is very different.
Yes, it's very different.
So we'll get to that.
So yeah, we'll get to that. It's not long. It's not far ahead, but
no,
we'll
really
get to
not
it
at all.
But yeah, so after this, then we have,
and then they kind of that brief thing about, like, I didn't lay a hand on him, right? Because he's still just angry about being accused.
Lay a hand on him.
And then he kind of gets back to the scene like, oh, there's not one time, and it was just could have happened to anybody, right? And again, like, at this point, when you think about it, and the way I'm thinking about it right now is as I'm speaking it, like, it seems like he's speaking to himself. It really does.
Yeah.
Like, it could have happened to anybody. And this is what I think is weird, right? I'm going to find the exact time frame. Yeah. So the accident was 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? That's what he says. But the conversation with the doctor earlier in the movie seems like it was far more recent.
Yeah, it seemed like it was 6.
She says that he hasn't touched a drop since.
Yeah.
Is what she says to the doctor.
Yes.
And in this scene, he says it's been, 4 months?
I think 6 months. I think 6 months.
6 months. 6 months.
Yeah.
So what's happening?
Yeah, exactly. And then we cut from the bar to Danny. He's basically seizing on the bed.
Yeah, he's like seizing on the bed.
He's hunched up. He's like huddled up, and he's just shaking. And this is when he shines to Scatman, to Scatman Crothers. So it cuts to Scatman Crothers in his house in Florida. He's sitting in his bed.
Giant ass nostrils.
Yes, his giant nostrils. He's sitting in his bed watching TV. And behind him, above his headboard, right in the middle of the wall, is a giant framed picture of a naked woman.
Big ass afro on this woman.
Yeah, too. Big afro on this woman.
She's kind of laying. It's not laying down. She's got her. She's kind of
down. She's kind of on her knees.
On her knees, and she's sitting on her knees and shins. Right, her breasts are hanging out,
and then it cuts to what he's seeing. He's watching TV, and just above the TV, there's another giant framed picture of a naked woman.
And you're thinking, like, wow, I didn't think this chef or cook was quite like that.
Yeah.
But it is Scatman Crothers. He's got game.
But apparently those pictures were put in there to show that it, or at least partially to show that it wasn't supposed to be like Shining wasn't supposed to be some sort of religious experience.
I mean,
that he wasn't some sort of religious, nut job or anything, zealot kind of, because, he has naked women on his walls.
I mean, but that could still be true.
It could be. but yeah, so he gets this look on his face. His eyes are just wide open. His mouth is gaped open. He's just he's horrified at what Danny is telling him.
Boobies on his wall, and all of a sudden he's got some other image.
Yeah, and he's just got he's seeing what Danny is showing him.
Yeah.
And I guess this could go in there really anywhere, because they don't actually explain it in the movie, but in the book it actually explains who Tony is.
Yes.
Tony is actually Danny grown up.
In the future. Yeah.
Calling back to his younger self, which is interesting.
Yeah,
because his middle name
series gets into that.
Because his middle name is Anthony.
Which I when I saw the miniseries, I always thought, wouldn't the parents have picked up on the fact that, or maybe they just thought that was just normal that.
Yeah, I mean,
he nicknamed his imaginary friend his middle name.
His middle name, which would make perfect sense for a kid to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, because in the book, he doesn't tell his parents about Tony. He doesn't tell them who Tony is or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But in the movie, he does. He tells them, about Tony. But so Dick gets it in his head that he needs to check on these people. So he calls the Forestry Service and asks them to call and see if to check on the Torrances.
And they can't get a hold of them. But again, it's nighttime. It's a big hotel,
mm-hmm.
and there's one radio station.
Yeah.
So if they're up in their room, they're not going to hear it all the way down in the lobby in the manager's office. There's no way.
Yeah.
So, that's basically kind of what's explained. It's if you call back in the morning, or a couple hours, I can give you any updates if we hear from them.
Yeah.
That's essentially what happens, right?
So
Scatman, what we don't know is that.
Oh, go
ahead. You can go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, Scatman decides that he doesn't have that kind of time to wait and get the response.
He's going to get on the first flight from Florida to Denver.
Yeah. So he gets on the first flight from Florida to Denver, and so he can go and check on them for himself.
Yep. Meanwhile, we don't like what's been,
because he's grown quite attached to Danny.
Yes, I get it. He shines.
Yeah.
But what we don't, it's kind of been established at this point now is that like one of the biggest storms in that hit Colorado is pretty much like getting into gear.
Yeah.
So, but as he's shining towards Dick, right? Wendy, he's, at this point, he's communicated to Wendy what's happened. It wasn't Jack that did this to him, right? So we get Wendy running down into the gold room, right? And she kind of snaps out that conversation that's going on between the two of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, there's someone else in the hotel.
Yeah, there's someone else in the hotel. Yeah. Danny says there's a woman. Danny. She strangled Danny. She attacked him.
I love Jack's response. Are you out of your fucking mind? Like, she's letting you off the hook.
Yeah.
You just complained about it.
Exactly.
And she's letting you off the hook. And your response is, are you out of your fucking mind?
Which is another thing that just goes into his dissent. He's not making sense anymore. She's giving him an out, and he's not taking it.
Nope.
And any sane person would take that.
And then finally he's like, well, what room was it?
Yeah,
right?
2237.
Now you get the music again.
Yeah.
Right? And
so
this room is fucking creepy. I'm sorry.
It is.
The colors in this room.
It is so creepy.
The green and the layout of it, like,
yeah.
Who designed this? Someone crazy designed this room.
Yeah.
So it's like a big suite where you have like a big, large living area, right? And you go off to the left, and there's a big bedroom there, and then a big bathroom on the other side of it, right? And all this time while this is going on, like, there's a few times it's cutting, and we're seeing Danny in his room, and his head's kind of shaking, and he's kind of like got some drool coming down from his mouth as all this is happening. And just proceed as Jack walks into the room.
Yeah.
And then he walks into the bedroom, and then he goes in the bathroom. And it's one of the old style tubs, and it's got the shower curtain going all around, and you can see there's a figure.
Yeah, in the tub.
Right? In the tub.
And you see this hand reach out and grab the shower curtain and open it up. And it's this woman, this young woman.
She steps out, and she's completely naked.
And she walks over. She walks up to Jack, and Jack embraces her and kisses her.
He's looking like he's looking animalistic again.
Yeah,
like there's this look at him, and he kind of has this smile, but it's like,
yeah,
again, it's a creepy smile. It's not like
it's a very creepy smile.
It's not this. It's funny. It's like not this.
It's like a predatory smile.
Yes, thank you. That's what I'm saying. It's not like this general smile. Like, oh yeah, that's a naked lady. Yes.
Yeah.
He's like, no. It's like, ah.
No, like, ooh, that's a naked lady. So
that looks a lot better than Shelley Duvall.
So he wraps his arms around her and he starts making out with her.
Yep.
And then pulls away and sees that she's turned into an old woman.
And he looks into the mirror.
Yeah, looks into the mirror. That's right. Looks into the mirror. And sees
all of a sudden, like where he's like caressed her in the back, it's been melted away.
Yeah, it's like the skin's been sort of decayed off and like just peeled off, and he kind of pulls away, and she's an old woman now, an old wrinkly woman.
It's like if he was. I won't go there.
And so he steps back. He takes a couple steps back, and then she reaches her. He stretches her arms out and starts like sort of waddling toward him. And laughing.
And by the way, she's still very much naked.
Yeah, she's still very much naked as an old woman. And so he runs out of the room. And interesting thing, so both actresses, the young woman and the old woman, this is the
Leah
only
Beldam
movie.
And Billy Gibson.
Yes, Leah Beldam and Billy Gibson. Leah Beldam was the young woman. Billy Gibson was the old woman. This is the only movie either one of them has ever been in.
Not surprised by Billy Gibson there. Leah Beldam, okay, I'm a little surprised she didn't find anything else.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Both of them, their only scene in a movie was naked the entire scene.
Well, the old lady was probably wearing some type of suit there that was to show all of it.
So
Leah Bellum.
Yeah. But anyway.
But hey, she got to kiss Jack Nicholson.
Yep.
Well,
So
she was completely naked.
So he runs out of the room.
And she's laughing. He's like, ah, ha,
yeah.
ha, 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 ha. And I love it, like he runs out of the room. And the next scene, like the key is the key is still in the lock.
Yes,
by the way.
key is still in the lock.
And he locks it.
Yeah.
Like again, so here's a good question about like him locking that door is going to do jack shit. She can just unlock the fucking door from the inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
But she doesn't. So like it gets into like these questions about boundaries because it's important later. So the next thing's like we back up in the apartment and like he's talking with Wendy. He's like, oh yeah, I saw nothing in there. Right? And of course, he didn't see nothing in there. And this is where it gets crazy again, where like here she is. She presents something perfectly reasonable. Like obviously something attacked him, and even after he says like he found nothing in that room, she still holds on to what Danny says, that some woman attacked him, right?
Yeah.
She doesn't go back and say that Jack attacked him. Nope. She still believes Danny's story.
Yeah.
Right? So her proposal is like, oh, maybe you should go, get him to leave. Like maybe, he should see a doctor. And then like, and again, like it could seem like a reasonable thing to say. And then the Jack, he flips quickly again. It's like, no, I've worked too hard. Again, how has he worked too hard?
Yeah.
He says, I've worked too hard for you to fuck this up.
Yep.
Like, what have you done? What would potentially be like screwed up? Your entire purpose here is just to write. Like, even if like they didn't like your job that much of how you took care of the hotel, if you were able to write a good book, wasn't that your original goal in the first place?
Yeah.
Is to write?
Yeah.
Something good. So he leaves again. Now he goes back to the gold room again.
Well, because this conversation takes place in the Colorado room, doesn't it? No, wait. No, that's still later. That's still after the gold room again. Yeah. Yes. Never mind. That comes later. But yeah, so he's back in the gold room, and this time it's full of partygoers.
Yes.
It's full of like roaring 20s.
No, it's straight back to the 1920s.
There's like a roaring 20s party going on in there.
There's a big band there doing kind of the instrumental jazz of the 20s. And
he goes, and there's a couple people sitting at the bar. And so he goes and he sits at the bar, and Lloyd comes over. And, he's talking to him, and Jack, and Lloyd asks him what he'll have. And he's like, the hair of the dog that bit me. And he's like, bourbon on the rocks. Yeah, Lloyd is like, bourbon on the rocks. And so he goes and, gets him the Jack Daniels again, and a glass with some ice. And this time Jack pulls out his wallet, and he's got cash in there. And
it's like, your money's no good here, sir.
He's like, your money's no good here, sir.
Like, I'm the type of guy that wants to know who's paying for my drink.
Mm-hmm.
And it's completely flipped, right?
It is, yeah.
Again, like,
because before he was happy to have his credit be good enough to get free drinks, and now it's not much later, and he's in there and he's almost arguing with Lloyd for giving him free drinks.
It wasn't this time watching it. It's probably within the last 5 or 6 years when I'm watching this, and just kind of actually realized like there is very little time within the movie between these two scenes.
There's really not.
In the gold room.
Yeah. There's really not a lot
right?
of time.
It's probably 10 to 12 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Because when he comes in, says about the woman, attacking Danny. What happens within that room is probably 5 to 8 minutes at the most, and then you get probably about 2 to 3 minutes of him going back to the little apartment and the two of them talking, and then he doesn't like what he hears again. And he comes back to that gold room.
Yeah, back to the gold room. And so then, Lloyd says a couple more things about, it's on the house. They don't want you to worry about where your drinks are coming from. And then Jack does a 180 again. And he's like, well, okay, I'll just enjoy my drink then. He gets a smile on his face, and he grabs his glass and he stands up and he goes and he's sort of dancing a little bit. And then you see this waiter come walking by. He's carrying a tray with some drinks on it. And one of the guests, kind of steps in his way, and he sort of steps away to avoid and sort of stumbles a little bit and spills the drinks.
The waiter.
Yeah, he
two of them knock into each other.
Yeah, they knock into each other, and the waiter spills the drinks on Jack's jacket.
And Jack's actually very, he's not angry about it, right?
He understands what's going on, and he's like, "Hey, yeah, it's okay, man. Don't worry about it." And the waiter's like, "Oh, let me clean you off. Come on, come into the bathroom. This stuff will stain, so let me come into the bathroom. We can get some water on it."
He's very good help.
Yes, an interesting thing while they're walking to the bathroom. So the whole story, the movie doesn't get into this, but the book is that the woman in room 237 in the movie, 217 in the book, is a woman who back at some point in time was upset by her lover leaving her. And so she slit her wrists in the bathtub and killed herself. And as Jack is walking to the bathroom with the waiter, there's an old woman sitting down on a couch that looks very similar to the old woman in the room. And she's talking to a man. She's like getting kind of friendly, talking to a man. And as Jack walks by, she kind of glares at him a little bit.
Interesting.
So is that the same woman?
I have to look at that again.
But anyway, so the waiter takes Jack into the bathroom, and it's this red, just like everything is red in this bathroom.
This bathroom is
like the sinks and the urinals are the only things that are not red.
Yeah.
Everything else is red. And, there's mirrors all along the wall by the sinks. And again, mirrors.
It's one of those Kubrickian sets in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And these super stark contrast of things we got. Yeah. Like, it looks just completely like how Kubrick would set something up. Because, like, that bathroom, like, I would not expect to see that bathroom in the hotel.
No. Especially since it is completely different than any other part of the hotel.
It is. Like, I don't know where I would even expect to see that bathroom.
Yeah. But
so I forgot to mention that Lloyd does say before we get into this, when Jack asks about who's paying for his drinks, Lloyd's like, it's not a matter that concerns you.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's not a matter that concerns you yet.
Or at this point.
Yeah.
So we don't really get fully into all that, but
no. And that's when Jack is like, oh, okay, well, thanks. I won't worry about it anymore then. But yeah, so Jack and the waiter are talking while the waiter is, getting his rag, wet and wiping
Jack
off the. Jack
discovers his name is Grady.
Yes. He says his name is Delbert Grady.
Like, you've been, you used to be the caretaker here, didn't you?
And then Grady's like, well, no, you've always been the caretaker here. I was never the caretaker here. But then Jack's like, but the manager told me that Grady was the former caretaker. And, as they're talking, then Grady starts to realize, starts to remember what happened.
How he had to correct his
Yes,
daughters.
and how he's like, yes, I was the caretaker here. And while I was here, one of my daughters found a matchbook and tried to burn the place down. So I had to correct her.
And when my wife tried to stop me from my duty, I
corrected her
had
too.
to correct her too.
Yeah. So he had corrected his daughters, and then he corrected his wife, and then he said, and your son, he's being a naughty boy. He's in contact with somebody on the outside.
The N-word.
Yes. A N-word on the outside.
N-word cook. The worst kind, right?
Yeah. The worst kind of cook. I mean,
he's gonna get you some really good jambalaya, and fried chicken, and
I would love it if Scatman Crothers would cook me a meal.
Scatman Crothers could cook me anything.
But anyway, so he's like, you may need to correct him, and so Jack's like, all right, well, thanks for letting me know. I'm gonna go correct my kid. So now Jack has completely gone off the deep end.
Yes. Oh, well, I was like, how like his mother interferes,
Yeah. His mother interferes with things. And, well, Danny's mother, Jack's wife.
And that's where
Wendy.
he kind of says, like, my girls didn't care, but you ever look at first, one of them stole a pack of matches and tried to burn it down. But I corrected them.
Yeah. My wife tried to stop me, so I corrected her too. But yeah, so.
And then we kind of get into the thing now. Like, we don't know really how long Jack's actually been, like, not in the apartment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wendy's just kind of thinking through her mind, like, what can we do here? Like, we got the snowcat. Like, let's just get Danny out at least, right? That's all she's thinking about, is just getting Danny to safety.
Yeah, and
Jack can't have it.
So then she falls asleep, and while she's sleeping, Danny is sort of taken over by Tony.
Yes.
Right, and he gets up, and she had after everything with the woman in room 237, then Wendy had gotten a knife from the kitchen,
right,
and sort of kept it by the bed,
keeps it there,
and so
Danny doesn't take it yet, because at first Danny's like in his room, and he kind of goes catatonic, and Tony kind of takes over Danny.
Mm-hmm. Tony kind of takes over Danny.
Danny's not here anymore, Mrs. Torrance.
No, that's still, isn't that after he wakes her up? After he grabs her lipstick? Or is that before?
The lipstick's later.
Okay.
That's like right before Jackson like break down the door, right? Because they're up in the room.
Yeah.
And Jack's down in the gold room.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And now he realizes that he needs to do something about it. Right. So she's just been kind of sitting with him. That's when Tony kind of takes over.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And then Jack destroys the radio as the Forestry Service is trying to contact them.
Jack destroys the radio as the Forestry Service is trying to contact them. And and Danny is talking to Wendy. He's like, Danny's not here right now, Mrs. Torrance. And so Wendy's starting to freak out. She starts shaking Danny, trying to wake him up. She's like, come on, Danny, wake up, wake up. And Danny's not responding. It's just Tony.
And this is really at the point then where we now see Dick in an airplane flying into Denver, right? Mm-hmm. And again, he's got a suit on. And again, most people had suits on the airplanes.
Yeah, this is
at this point.
At that time when people dressed up to fly.
It might not be the 50s or 60s yet, but still people dressed appropriately for that. So, and he asked the stewardess, like, "Oh yeah, we'll do the land in like 30 minutes, whatever it is."
Then he lands and he finds a payphone and he calls his buddy.
He calls someone that's like in that town that's like just out not far from the Overlook. And
yeah, because he needs a car and he needs a snowcat.
Yep.
So he asks him to get a snowcat ready for him so he can get up to the hotel. Because he gives him, he's like, why didn't you get up there? He gives him some excuse. Well, the caretaker that we're hiring is a deadbeat. I need to go and relieve him.
It's like he said like they're unreliable assholes.
Yeah.
I just see that he replaced, and that's
he's like, all right, I'll get a snowcat for you. So he rents a car and he drives it over to the snowcat place, and then it cuts back to this is in the Colorado room, right?
Yeah.
When Wendy's got the baseball bat.
Yes.
And Jack shows up.
Well, it's funny. She kind of walks into it and like she gets like the typewriter.
Right. Yeah, she gets over the typewriter and there's a stack of papers right next to the typewriter. His book, what he's written. And
yeah. And this is like a very famous like line or scene.
Yes. So she sees the pages there, and she picks one up to read it.
Probably like 500 pages on here, at least.
At least 500-600 pages. Apparently, Kubrick had his assistant writing for like 3 months straight to type all of this out.
Yeah,
so that it would all be
true, yes.
So that it would all be complete. Like there are no blank pages in this stack.
Correct. Looks correct, right? And it also had to be varied.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No page was exactly like the previous one.
So it's over and over. It just says all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
And to quickly go over this, there's right before this, there's still a scene in the apartment where Wendy and Danny or Tony are watching like TV. And
they're watching Roadrunner.
She's gonna leave. She's gonna lock the door.
That's right.
And as she leaves, she gets the baseball bat.
Yes. They're watching Roadrunner cartoon.
It's actually kind of appropriate.
Yeah. So she gets the baseball bat and goes down there, sees the pages, and she's just flipping through them, and every page is a different like design of like the way the words are set up.
Frantic as she's like flicking through all of this.
Yeah. And interesting thing here. So every time that Jack is typing on the typewriter throughout the movie, he's typing all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
Yeah, right.
Because Kubrick was very meticulous, as we've said.
Yes.
And he knew that there are people who can tell the difference between different keys on a typewriter, what they sound like. So he's like, okay,
you don't need some professional typist.
In case one of these people is watching,
you did this wrong.
Make sure you're typing all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy.
What if Jack was not using a QWERTY keyboard?
Well, then someone would know. but yeah, so as she's flipping through these, then Jack shows up.
And she's frightened when he does. Like it's actually really well done because like
he just kind of surprises her.
Pans in behind her.
It's almost like a jump scare, him showing up.
It is. Yeah.
So she starts sort of backing away from him as he's walking toward her, telling her that he needs to go take care of Danny, and she's kind of freaking out. She starts swinging the bat at him, but he's too far away.
It's like, it's like, what did you want to talk about? It's like, I can't remember. It's like, I just want to get back to my room and think. And he's like, you've had your whole fucking life to think about it, right? He's completely changed.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, he mocks her too. He's like, maybe we should think about it, right?
Yeah. Meanwhile, they're walking.
The only thing he wants, her response is actually like, the way I'm saying, I don't like how it sounds actually, but she wants to have him checked out. And that's it. She's not saying that Jack has to leave the hotel.
No, she just wants to take Danny to the doctor. She just wants to take Danny to see a doctor. And Jack is like, nobody's leaving this hotel. And so he's backing her across the room and up the stairs. She's walking up the stairs backwards, swinging this bat at him, but he's just out of reach. Finally, they get to the top of the stairs.
And at this point, she's just saying, like, I just want to get back to my room. And, like, he continues to, like, go after her and kind of taunt her and tease her, right?
Yeah. And she makes it to the top of the stairs.
She starts swinging that bat.
And then she swings it and hits him in the head, and he falls back and just tumbles down the stairs.
Yes.
And she takes this opportunity to run.
Yep. And then eventually she just drags him and locks him in the food pantry.
Yeah, locks him in the food pantry, and then goes back upstairs to the apartment to be with Danny. She locks him in there. Like, she puts the pin in the handle and everything. She locks him in there.
Makes a lot of sense to me.
And so he's trapped in there. She goes and she, feels that they're, safe enough that she can sort of, still have her guard up, but get some rest.
Yeah.
So, well, does it show the stuff with Danny first, or does it show the stuff with Jack first here?
Jack here, I think.
So then it shows an interior of the dry goods pantry
it does.
Where Jack is.
Here. We don't see Danny yet. Soon, but not yet.
Yeah. So, and we hear a voice from outside the door. It is Grady's voice.
Yes. Now this is always really, I think it's interesting because he's like, how does he gain the privilege towards this? Yeah.
So every interaction with any sort of ghost in this hotel so far you've been able to argue that maybe it's all in Jack's head.
Yes.
This part right here clearly is not just in Jack's head.
Definitely not his head. I agree.
And also, so Jack is standing on one side of the door, and he's hearing Grady on the other side. And here's an interesting little tidbit. So every time that Jack interacts with a ghost, there's always a mirror present.
All right.
There's always a mirror. Anytime Jack interacts with any ghost, there's always a mirror present. Except for this moment. There's no mirror, but...
No mirror.
But there is a shiny metal door.
Mm-hmm.
Which has a little bit of a reflection to it, because it's a shiny metal door. But this is also the moment where a ghost actually interacts with its surroundings.
Yes.
With the real world. Because coming up, Grady opens the door for Jack. We don't see Grady open the door for Jack.
We don't see it. We hear them talk.
And
they think that he doesn't have the belly.
Yes.
For the proper
Grady
discipline.
Grady doesn't think that Jack has the proper discipline to correct his family.
But he's supposed to correct them in the most severe way.
Yes.
Which would be, killing them.
Yes, it would be killing them.
I think you hopefully caught on to that based off what's happening in this movie.
Yeah. So, then we cut to the apartment, and Wendy is asleep on the bed.
Yes.
And Danny, still being controlled by Tony,
finds some lipstick.
Gets up, walks over, finds some lipstick and the knife that Wendy had, and he's just saying red rum, red rum, red rum, red rum.
Right. It's very casual, right? He's writing, and he's just kind of saying red rum.
Yeah. He's writing on the bathroom door.
And then the pace of it accelerates.
Yeah. So he writes red rum across the bathroom door with like a backwards R in there. And
at first he writes it just like red rum after he does it.
Yep. And then he just starts saying
red rum,
red rum, red rum, red rum, red rum, red rum, red rum, red rum.
Wow, that's really good. I know you're good. Damn.
But anyway, so this wakes up Wendy.
Yeah, no shit.
And she, grabs Danny, and she gets the knife.
She's just grabbing Danny
and gets the knife out of his hand. Yeah, she gets the knife out of his hand. And he's like, "Are you okay? Okay." And then she sees the mirror, and in the mirror, she sees red rum that's written across the door, but in the mirror, it's the right way, and it says murder.
Murder. And the only other thing is like the second R is like backwards, but it's obvious that it says murder, right? So that now flips things to another gear, right?
Yes.
And now Danny is now back Danny.
Yes, Danny's now back to Danny. Tony has stopped his takeover of Danny's body.
And I always think it's funny at this point, Danny is completely different than even from earlier in the movie. Like he now feels older.
Yes.
He's not like that little 5-year-old boy we saw.
No, he's
like seems like 7 or 8.
Yeah,
right?
he is grown up so much.
It's really interesting how
earlier in the day
kind of does that.
Yeah.
And like now you get the music, and it just pulls you into everything. Like it's a full-fledged next 15
and
minutes.
also, by the way, throughout the course of these last several events, the title cards have been showing up like different days. And then in this day, it's hours, like times. So like 4 p.m., 1 p.m., 4 p.m., whatever.
Right. And within that, we now have seen Dick. He's in the snowcat. And you could see him just kind of...
He's approaching
before, we had seen him in the rental car, like, driving up the mountain towards the town. Like, we see him drive by, like, there's a tractor trailer that fell over and crushed another beetle.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? And you hear the whole thing, like, the entire thing, right? Anyway.
And then, we see him on the snowcat driving up a road between 2 rows of trees.
Right. So, like, he's obviously going towards the hotel. So you kind of have a sense of what's happening with him as this is now building up.
Yes.
Like, further.
And meanwhile, Jack has been let out of the pantry.
Right. How this ever happens, we never find out. And I love that aspect.
It's strongly implied that Grady let him out because there's no really no other way that he could have been let out.
But he's a ghost. How does this happen?
Exactly.
Where does the axe come from?
Yeah, and he has an axe.
Obviously, I mean, where all this comes from, right? Like
in the book, it's a croquet mallet, but in the movie, it's an axe.
Which I'm glad it's an axe for the movie. I get the croquet mallet, but the way they say in the book is like, "Come down here and take your medicine." And like it's funny, like we see him disable the CB. I guess we kind of do see him go towards the snowcat to disable the snowcat.
Yeah, we do. We see him, he goes outside of the snowcat and disable that.
So all that's happened.
Meanwhile,
now he's breaking down the door.
No, not yet. So
go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess he is on his way up to the room to the apartment now. Yeah,
he breaks down the door to the apartment first.
Yeah, so he starts. Bathroom
door.
Wendy hears him coming up to the door to the apartment, so she takes Danny into the bathroom.
She takes quick charge. Yeah. She's ready. She's going to protect her son.
She grabs Danny. She takes him into the bathroom. She's got that knife with her.
Yep.
And so they're in there. She locks the door, and she's trying to get to the window, and she tries to open the window.
There's a window in there.
There's a window, and
but there's
somehow
a snowdrift kind of going
there's this huge snowdrift that goes up to right beneath the window, and it's just a perfect little decline from the window down to the ground, like a slide.
Like a slide.
And so she's trying to open this window.
The window enough.
Yeah, she can get the window about halfway open.
Get Danny out.
Yeah, she can get the window about halfway open. So she, opens it up, and it's just enough room for Danny to slip through. So she, picks Danny up and puts him in there, and he sort of slides down. Then she tries to go out the window, but there's not enough. Even though she's a very skinny woman,
she's a skinny woman, but she's not a 6-year-old boy.
Yeah, so she can't fit through there. So she kind of huddles in the corner by the door while Jack knocks down, uses the axe to cut through the door to the apartment.
He's got the famous line.
And then, no, that's to the apartment. And then he comes to the bathroom door, starts hitting it.
Well,
funny thing about this
is first thing he says, "Wendy, I'm home."
Yeah, Wendy, I'm home. And then, so funny thing about this bathroom door. They, because they knew that Jack Nicholson was supposed to chop through it with an axe. They got a weak door that would be easy enough to chop through,
Right, yeah. Makes total sense.
Not realizing that Jack Nicholson used to be a volunteer firefighter. And so he made splinters of this door really quick.
Yeah, I bet.
So, they got a more heavy-duty door, and he cut through that one real quick. They ended up going through 60 doors before they got their final shot. They went through 60 doors for this bathroom.
No.
Because he was just too good with that axe.
No. That's
So
you should be closer to a C minus with the axe. I'm sorry, but that was a C. Redo it.
so so he knocks a hole in the door, and this you get that famous line. He sticks his face in the door and he's like, "Here's Johnny," which was ad-libbed, by the way.
Yeah, perfect though.
Stanley Kubrick, being from England, had never really seen the Tonight Show.
Who's Johnny Carson?
Starring Johnny Carson.
It's 1980. I should know Johnny Carson at this point,
But
even if I am from England.
Yeah. But yeah, Jack Nicholson just thought in the moment, because that's what Ed McMahon used to say every episode. He's like, "Here's Johnny." And so, he just thought it'd be something cool to say there. So he did it, and they ended up keeping it in the movie.
It's been perfect. So
it's been constantly in, the top movie lines of all time.
Like everything at this point.
So, he sort of tries to reach through to open the door,
but she slashes at him.
Yeah, slashes at him with a knife and hits his hand.
His wrist is hit the back of his hand open.
Yeah, so he sort of backs up and leaves the apartment.
Well, then he hears.
Yeah, that's right. He hears the snowcat coming up. So he's like, okay, well, who's coming? And
meanwhile, Danny has gone back in. Like, he goes back into the hotel after he escapes, and he's hiding in the kitchen. In the kitchen, just like Jurassic Park, when the raptors are coming, he hides in the kitchen in one of those cabinets under the counter. Because that's where you hide.
Yeah, and he hides in there, and he shuts the door on it as much as it'll shut. It won't shut all the way, but so Jack goes through the kitchen. Danny's real quiet in that little cupboard. And so Jack just passes right by him and goes out into the main lobby area. Just as he hears Scatman come in the door and start calling for people. Like, is anybody here? Man. And as Scatman's walking through the lobby, he's sort of looking around. And eventually he comes up and Jack jumps out from behind one of the columns.
Okay.
And just runs his axe right into Scatman's chest.
Yeah.
The only actual on-screen death in the movie.
Actual on-screen death, yeah. And you get, that happens, and Danny screams at it, right? So his mind's connected in with what's happening, right? Because of The Shining.
Yes, because of The Shining. And so he's connected with Scatman. That, and here's another little interesting thing. So earlier in the movie, when Danny's playing with his toys in the lobby, he's got this doll.
Okay.
The doll is a black doll, an African-American doll.
Okay.
Wearing a red shirt.
I don't know if I've ever seen this.
And it's laying down on the floor in the same place that Scatman Crothers dies. So his black doll with a red shirt is laying in the same spot where Scatman Crothers is later laying. He's not wearing a red jacket or anything. He's wearing a tan jacket, but it's covered in blood.
Interesting.
So there was a little bit of foreshadowing there back earlier in the movie.
Aware of that.
So Scatman's laying on the floor dead.
He's dead. Yeah, it's so sad.
It's kind of hard to survive getting an axe driven into your heart. Yeah, he survives the book, by the way. It's so interesting because they set this entire thing up for him to be like part of it, and then like he just so quickly gets he gets the hotel and just automatically just dies.
Like they set it up just like the book kind of does, and then and then he gets an axe shoved through his chest. Yeah, which normally kills you.
Usually, yeah,
unless you're invincible, I guess.
Yeah, but anyway. So at this point, Wendy has left the apartment and she's running through the hotel, and she's starting to see some creepy stuff. Yeah, she's starting to see some creepy shit.
Yeah, she's a guy with some blood running down his face, toasted her, and then
which which then later is explained in Dr. Sleep that's actually the original owner of the hotel.
Makes sense. I buy that. Yeah.
But so
then you get like other guys that woman that
the scene the shot when she's running up the stairs carrying the knife in this sequence, right? She's running up the stairs carrying the knife. They shot this scene or this just sequence, just not even a full scene, just this running up the stairs, something like 34 times. Which was the equivalent of running up the Empire State Building.
No wonder she was nuts after this.
Yeah. Or however many times it was. Yeah, it was the equivalent of running up the Empire State Building.
Yeah.
Running up all the stairs in the Empire State Building. That's how many times they had to redo this. Just that one shot, basically.
It's crazy.
But she gets to the top of the stairs and looks into one of the rooms, and what does she see, Tony?
She sees someone in a bear mask performing.
Yeah. Is it a bear? Is it a bear or a dog? Sort of a bear dog?
Bear dog.
Yeah.
We'll call it a hybrid.
Yeah. Performing
fellatio on
a well-dressed man in a tuxedo and a top hat.
Yes.
And a monocle. He had a monocle, right?
I don't think he has a monocle.
He really?
He may have a monocle. He's not using it at the moment, so he has it.
Yeah, but
and
he's a dapper gentleman. He's a dapper gent. Yeah, and he kind of sits up, and the guy in the dog bear suit kind of.
I mean, hey.
Gets up and they look at her.
He got disturbed because the hybrid bear dog was giving him a blowjob, and Shelley Duvall interrupted that.
Yeah, and so they just kind of stare at her.
And she's got the knife, and she's even more thrown off. She's like, ah!
Yeah,
but she's almost kind of got the wacky waving inflatable arm.
She does.
Tube band.
She does have the wacky waving inflatable arm flailing tube band kind of body language going on.
Which I don't blame her for this, considering what she just saw.
Yeah. Then she gets, and so here's where the whole floor plan of this hotel is all kinds of wonky. Because then she's in the gold ballroom, which is on the first floor. She just ran up the stairs, and now she's all of a sudden on the first floor.
Everything about it, because like this entire wing of where they're supposed to be, like where like it almost feels like this employee wing, right? It's a blue color, right? And parts of it kind of feel like normal, but you never get a sense of it. And then she's down in the gold ballroom. And she's down there, and then she just sees a bunch of skeletons.
Yeah. Bunch of skeletons.
Okay, I buy that she's going to
bunch of skeletons that are in the same positions as they were when Jack was in there, and they were people.
Yes. Right. So like, yeah, I get she's seeing them as they are, and that's fine, but we don't get to see them in these rooms, just maybe playing pinochle.
Yeah. And so
not drinking anything.
Then we have Danny. He gets out of the kitchen and he's running and he sees Scatman laying on the ground, laying on the floor.
That's never a great look for a 5-year-old to see.
No, it's not. Not at all.
What happened to him, Mommy?
But so yeah, then you have Jack, he's calling for Danny, and so Danny runs outside again. And Jack at this point Jack saw Danny, right?
Yes, because he was. So it's funny, like you don't really realize into this scene how close like the hallway and the kitchen area are to the lobby.
Yeah,
because he's hiding in there like Jurassic Park style, right? And he hears his name, and finally he runs out from there, and he runs out of that kitchen area, and he gets out the door pretty quickly.
Yeah.
right? So it's all
so Jack sees him go outside. Jack sees him run outside, so he's chasing him.
And then he decides, before he does that, like when he does, the first thing he does is like he turns on the light. There's they have like floodlights outside because it's a hotel. Like they might, at times they're gonna have stuff open at night or when it's raining. And he turns it on so you can see more of what's happening, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine with that. That makes sense. There's nothing wrong with that.
And so Danny runs into the hedge maze.
In terms of story role. But yeah, so he runs into the hedge maze.
And Jack comes out and he sees the footprints going. Because it's snow. There's snow all over the place outside. There's a blizzard going on. So he sees the footprints going into the hedge maze. So he follows the footprints into the hedge maze. So Danny is running through, trying to stay away from Jack. Jack is following his footprints.
Right.
They go through a couple of little twists and turns, and then Danny shows brilliance that a typical 5, 6, 7-year-old wouldn't have.
Right. Okay.
And Danny, he sort of runs into a dead-end area on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see him backtracking. He's stepping into his own footprints, backing up.
Okay. All right.
And he gets back a little bit and then sort of jumps over into a little alcove where, and then he sort of covers up, what little bits of footprints he has there so that he can hide.
He's very smart about it.
So he just sits there and hides.
Yeah.
And so Jack,
for Jack to get lost.
Yeah. So Jack comes, he's following the footprints and he gets, walks right past where Danny's hiding and he sees the footprints end.
Yes.
And then they're nowhere, he doesn't know where Danny went after that.
Yeah. It's reasonable.
And so then Jack, he starts wandering around the maze looking for Danny, and Danny takes this opportunity to escape.
Yeah. So he finds the right spot, and he kind of backtracks the steps.
Yeah, and so Danny ends up going out.
The regular steps together, which is a great idea.
Yeah.
Somehow, something is coaching this 6-year-old how to do this properly.
Yeah. So meanwhile, Jack is lost in this maze, and Danny knows his way out because he's just following his own footsteps.
Yeah. He just knows what to do. Smart kid.
Yeah. And so he goes back in and meets up with Wendy. And, they get out of there. They go and they take Scatman's snowcat and they take it, down the road to safety.
Yeah.
And then it's the next day. And we're just sort of seeing the aftermath of everything.
Right. It's sunny again.
And then we see a shot inside the hedge maze.
And it's just Jack Nicholson, and he's an icicle.
Yes, Jack is sitting down there. It's just sitting on the ground, his eyes wide open, and he's just frozen solid.
Sat down at some point because he was tired of looking at Danny. He didn't do anything else after that.
Yep. He froze to death. Yep, he froze to death, and there's icicles forming on him, and he's all blue.
Right, you know oil? No.
And
Danny and and Wendy, they took the snowcat. The Scatman came in.
Yeah, and they took that back down the mountain.
They got away. Not that they had to, because someone was stuck in the hedge maze.
Yeah,
they could have gone back in there and been okay. Maybe it would have been okay. Maybe it wouldn't have. I don't know.
Yeah.
At what point, what was the hotel trying to do at that point? I had no idea.
Yeah. But anyway, so they escape. They're safe. And yeah, it's just Jack is dead he's frozen to death in the hedge maze.
Jack's dead, baby. Jack's dead.
Jack's dead, baby. Jack's dead. Yeah, we're definitely gonna do Pulp Fiction one of these days. But anyway, definitely. So then we get one final shot.
This is you could take this so many ways.
Yeah. So first up, music starts playing. It starts out in the Gold Ballroom, and music starts playing an old record is playing from the 20s.
This really makes you feel classic.
Yeah, like 20s music is playing, and the camera just slowly pans across the ballroom and then out the door of the ballroom to the hallway where there's this picture hanging on the wall, this framed picture of a group of people at a party.
Yep.
And
that's only 10 years ago.
Yeah, and it sort of zooms in on this picture, and there's a group of people, then it zooms in even more in the down at the bottom of the picture in the center, this figure that looks somewhat like Jack. And it zooms in even farther, and it is Jack. Jack Torrance is there.
Mm-hmm. He is. That's right.
And then it pans down, and just under Jack, it says July 4th party, something like that, 1921.
Yeah. Like, also, like, wait, what?
It's like, what?
What's happening?
Has Jack always been the caretaker?
You've always been the caretaker.
Is all of that Grady stuff? Was that actually Jack that did that?
And if it was, why did it take them 30 years to get her properly on a ballot?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There's so much to know.
Yep.
And we're not going to get the right answers. Or at least maybe the satisfactory answers. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot to think about with it. So,
So then after that, the credits roll.
It's the credits. And again, like we talked a lot about it, and there's a lot of scenes and there's a lot of things that don't really happen. And it's just what's presented.
Yeah.
And it's just Kubrick's amazing. And it might be his finest movie.
It might be. It might be. Like I said, it's the one that I've seen the most of his movies.
Yeah, I mean, easily.
I mean, it's
fine. I don't even think I've seen Clockwork Orange in over 10 years. I used to watch that quite a bit. But
yeah, the only time I've seen that one was when we watched it at the apartment at the 303.
There's a lot of boobs in that movie, too.
Mm-hmm.
Very different than this one.
Yes.
They're not. In terms of the 237 lady.
Yeah, I will not. I will never think of Singing in the Rain the same way again after seeing that movie.
No. You never.
But anyway, so that's The Shining.
It's The Shining, yeah.
And so, yeah. Is there anything? I mean, there's plenty that we missed. There's plenty that we missed. Talk about this movie for.
We could talk about specific characters for 2 hours.
We could talk about this movie for days. There's so much in it,
and where things go, and
yeah. But if you get a chance, watch the Room 237 documentary.
That's what I would say. Just check it out. It's out there. I think Netflix has it. Again, it's not super long and just dives into so many things that you wouldn't even think about. Like we kind of talked about the Native American aspect of it, and that kind of
goes into detail about that.
It's still there though in the movie if you really want to look at it. And I don't know.
But yeah, this is one of the few movies that no matter how many times I've seen it, it still creeps the crap out of me every time I see it.
You could talk about the girls looking creepy, which they do. But it's even just kind of what they're even saying and even why they're saying it. Like, I think part of it's that subtle flip of character. And all of a sudden, like what's being said or talked about is just flipped a little bit differently. And it unsettles you. Yeah. And like just camera angles and stuff. So there's typically, in movies, there's sort of an unwritten rule that the good guys on the right side, bad guys on the left side. Oh, yeah. Right? Yep. In that bathroom scene with Jack and Grady, Kubrick is constantly switching the perspective. Yes. So Jack is on the right, Grady is on the left, then all of a sudden they're swapped. Jack is on the left, Grady's on the right. It's just he's constantly switching back and forth to sort of throw you off there. And just even how they come up and just how does the hotel do this? Or is it just yourself doing it? Yeah. And again, we talked about how like the two bar scenes and just how it's presented is very different. And yeah, I'm sure there's even things you talk about how we lie to ourselves, and you can get into that in terms of determining what's true and what's not true within this movie. But what we know is like at some point the thing breaks down through and it leads to that climax, and there it is. So it's a movie worthy of watching, a movie worthy of just discussing, almost ad nauseum.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those movies that there's no way you're going to catch on to everything on one viewing. This is one of those movies that if you want to try to understand any of it, you got to watch it multiple times.
Yes.
And I get that there are many people out there that, horror movies, maybe they're not your thing, which is fine.
Right.
I'm not a huge fan of horror movies for the most part.
Like,
I do enjoy one every once in a while, but I have to be kind of in the right mood to watch horror movies.
Yeah, I think in general I would agree.
But this one, it's like you said, it's more of a thriller. I mean, it has horror elements to it,
right? But
it's more of like a psychological thriller kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it plays on every aspect of your mind, but you need the actual, I was going to say horror part of it, but yeah, to kick that into gear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So anyway,
our next movie though,
so we'll
very different.
Yes, our next movie will be very different than this, and I'll get to that in just a second. But yeah, if you want to follow us on social media, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure. The "and" is spelled out A-N-D. It's not an ampersand like the name of the podcast. We're also on Twitter or X. That is R&T Cinematic. And then we're also on Letterboxd, so you can check out our reviews of various movies, mostly Tony's reviews because he handles the Letterboxd. But that is Cine Adventure or Cine Adventure, CINE Adventure. And if you want to send us an email, let us know what you thought of The Shining. Is there a different movie that you would put, a different Kubrick movie that you enjoy more? Is there a different horror movie that you enjoy more? Do you have a tradition on, a movie that you watch this time of year? Let us know. It's Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure at gmail.com.
Has your opinion of The Shining changed over time?
Yeah.
First time you saw it, it's like, what's happening? I don't like this.
Have you seen it 100 times? And you saw it
several times after that, and you're like, wow, this actually is very, very good.
Yeah. Have you seen it 100 times and you're still seeing new things when you watch it? But yeah, it's Rob and Tony's Cinematic Adventure at gmail.com. And the "and" once again is spelled out A-N-D. It's not an ampersand like in the name of the podcast. And, if you enjoy the show, visit our social media, give us a like and a follow. Go to your favorite podcast app, whatever app you're listening to us on, or if you want to do multiple apps, we appreciate it.
Yes,
then give us a good rating and a good review. That's how we move up in the standings, in the search, in the recommendations, and we can reach more ears and, we can find more like-minded individuals to, share our conversation with.
Absolutely.
And even if you're not a like-minded individual, if you just like a contrasting view on some of these movies than what you might have, but you enjoy listening to us talking about them,
Hey, I like hearing different views.
Yeah. Leave us a good rating, a good review, a comment, If you leave us a good comment, a good review, something like that, we're happy to give you a shout out on some of these episodes.
That's right.
And so we're just trying to reach as many people as we can, as many ears as we can to share our opinions on these movies.
Share our opinions, our love, our style.
Yeah, because Tony and I both love movies.
We love them.
And we love talking about them.
And I don't care if it's a more arty movie or something that's just turning your brain off and it's a little bit more ridiculous.
Yeah. So, as Tony was saying, our next episode is going to be something a little bit different. At least different than what we've been doing lately.
I mean, the movie itself was a hit, but it's not a sports movie or anything that kind of makes you think ball.
No, but it came out back in 2016.
Yes.
We are going to be doing Deadpool. So the brilliant Ryan Reynolds superhero, anti-hero, mercenary movie.
It's funny to think that it's 8 years old because it's dominated for a while. There's been so much that's happened in those 8 years. And it's dominated a lot of discussion. So I'm very eager to talk about this. So
yes,
and I guess we're doing the whole trilogy, right? Well, we just not next week.
Yeah,
but
not next week. But the next 3 weeks, the next 3 episodes will be the Deadpool trilogy. So Deadpool, then Deadpool 2, then Deadpool and Wolverine. And you, Tony, have not seen any of these movies yet, have you? Except part of Deadpool that you've started watching already.
Yeah, I just started last night.
I'm real excited to talk to you about these movies.
I already have some thoughts about the first one. Obviously, have not baked anything from the second or third one yet.
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. So join us next time for Deadpool.